This week's guest on The Necessary Entrepreneur is Bob Herzog, the anchor of Good Morning Cincinnati on Local 12, the host and creator of Dance Party Friday, also a member of local community theaters and does a lot in the children's community theater, is a dad of amazing 4 kids, is a husband to what I know is an awesome wife now, because you got to have great people around you if you're going to accomplish the things in life that Bob Herzog has. He's a lover of Lucasfilms and from Star Wars to Indiana Jones because he loves the story of a hero that sacrifices for good. He's the 2023 recipient of the Joe Nuxhall Humanitarian Award, which leaves an indication, guys, every time that we receive an award, it doesn't mean we've done big things. It might mean that we've donated a lot of money. But no doubt this award indicates the significant impact that Bob has made in the philanthropic environment and made a lot of people smile and made huge impacts in our community. He's an attorney who thinks someone that's accomplished everything like Bob has and the person that we see on TV every day, that they're also an attorney. Guys, he spent 4 years of his life while he was becoming a husband, a father, and while he was also keeping his foot plugged into the local news community to get his law degree as a backup plan, which is significant. There's indications all over this guy, who is Bob Herzog, that if you surround yourself with great people, you can do great things in life. And no doubt he's done that. And what we have to start doing with Bob is highlighting the ones around us that are achieving more than us. Let's not tear them down and feel better about ourselves because we can give ourselves excuses for not doing the Bob Herzog level, but let's make sure we prop them up to let them leave the footprints that we can follow so that they leave examples of the lives we can live and the impacts in the community we can make. I hope you enjoy this episode of The Necessary Entrepreneur, because being around Bob for 2.5 hours has made me better and going to improve my life, and I hope it does the same thing for you. Thanks for tuning in.
But so I went to see this guy last night to get the robe, the Sith robe or whatever that was. Is that what that was? Was that a Sith robe?
That was very Sith robe, yeah.
Okay.
It would have been in brown, Jedi, black, Sith.
What'd you think when you walked in?
I didn't see Yoda at first, and that was a problem. So all I saw was a dude in a black cloak, and I thought, they are going to sacrifice an animal on that table and force me to drink its blood. And that had me concerned.
Would that have been okay?
I may have had to step back from that a little bit. I don't know. You know what, guys? I forgot. There's breaking news, and I have to go cover it somewhere right now.
How'd Yoda make you feel, though, when you...
I always feel better when I see Yoda.
Okay.
Then there was balance in the Force. And that's what we all long for, is balance in the Force.
So, hey, thanks for coming and joining. Yeah. Bob Herzog, I think so you just came from probably Good Morning Cincinnati.
I did.
Right?
I did.
And so where you are, it says you're an anchor with Sheila.
Yes.
Why is it not co-anchor?
I guess it could be either way. I don't know.
I just wonder what that was.
Yeah, I don't know if there was...
Does that make you sound like you're just even more cool?
A whole lot of thinking that went into... No, definitely not, because she is Sheila Gray. She is Sheila...
We're not going to say the other two
Freaking
words.
Gray. Freaking. We'll go with Sheila Freaking Gray.
So I, before you were coming in, I was like, man, let me get to know the Bob guy.
Okay.
But everybody that I've talked to in preparing for this, I said, hey, guys, I think he's going to walk into the studio and be the same guy that I see on all his social media, on the news, and you 100% were when you walked down the hall.
I hope so. I hope so. There's no sense in trying to be somebody else. One of the best pieces of advice I got from John Lomax, the venerable, the legendary John Lomax, very early on when I started at Local 12, was be yourself or everyone will know it. Be yourself on air or everyone will know you're not. And it was one of the best pieces of advice.
Same approach to life?
Yeah, 100%. Just do like you do. I can remember the first opportunity I got to actually anchor where I wasn't doing traffic was a Saturday morning, and I thought I had to go full, now I am the anchor man.
That was before the Grays.
That was before the Grays. Yeah, I didn't have the built-in. You know what I mean? So I had to bring it with the voice. Had to get the eyebrow a little bit. But I remember succinctly coming out of that Saturday feeling like that wasn't quite right. And you know what I found was, if it's a serious story, and obviously we have to tell lots of serious stories and lots of horrific stories. I just talk about that the way I would talk about it if you and I were chatting down the way about, pick the horrible story that we had to talk about today. If it's an awful thing, I don't have to not be me to talk about it. I have to just talk about it in the way I would talk about it. I don't have to become the anchorman now. That's not real. I think we've gotten to a time where people don't want that. They don't expect that. They don't want that person, with the microphone on their jacket and the tie, who seems too authoritative, too always that guy. Because nobody's that guy. Nobody's that guy. And so you just be you.
I saw, speaking of John Lomax, I knew he was like your mentor.
The best.
I saw a year ago when he retired,
Yeah.
the video that's out there where you said, hey, producers, can I get a minute?
Yeah.
How'd that feel to be able to do that for someone that impacted your life in that way?
I felt very fortunate that they gave me the time to do it. Broadcast is a little different animal in that there are hard outs and there's only so much time, and are we still in the meter? Are we out of the meter? All these kinds of things. But that day it didn't matter. That day it went out the window a little bit, and to be able to say that to him in that way was really important to me. As you saw in that video, I'm a really emotional guy. I will cry at the drop of a hat, and I had written that out and put it in the prompter to try to help myself to get through it, and it didn't work. I still broke up pretty good just because that's how much John meant to me and still means to me. We text all the time. We try to get together. We try to get the whole gang together for lunch. Maybe once, twice a month, kind of a thing. So yeah, he's the best.
Is that normal in the news business where you find a mentor, where someone steps in to mentor? Is it competitive? Like what?
I think in the best of scenarios, it is that way, and that's what I landed in with John, to be around a guy who is as good as he was on TV, and for him to still have that willingness to not see that young whippersnapper, coming up trying to. There was never that. There was none of that ever. That's not in his personality. That's not his way. It was always how can I help this guy be the best that he can be doing this job? Which is, what a gift. What a blessing. Oh, my gosh. Yeah.
So did you sleep well last night?
I did. The Reds are in first place. I slept great. I slept awesome. How fun are the Reds right now?
Yeah, until we had that little mini blip a few weeks ago.
I know.
Let's be honest. How'd you
Okay.
feel when that happened? How'd you feel?
Okay. I thought that I allow myself to get too excited about this baseball team. Mm-hmm. That's what I thought. Because when that 12, 13 game winning streak hit, and they're at about game 7 or 8, and you start, like, if you step back from it because you've been hurt before, you step back from it and you go, you know what? A lot of young guys. We're going to hit the All-Star break, and all of a sudden teams are going to have a lot more at-bats to look at from these guys, and their approach is going to change a lot right after the break. And then, sure enough, right after the break, things not going so great. But now, if we can just stop playing Milwaukee, and we're done with them for the regular season,
Maybe.
For
the
the regular season, we're done.
Mm-hmm.
And keep them playing the Braves, we're gold. Mm-hmm. Milwaukee keep playing the Braves, and we don't play Milwaukee, off and running we go.
So do you tell your brain, like, now I can sleep well tonight? Or you just see they're half a game up and your body knows?
Just naturally it knows. Now, it's funny. That kind of thing, mostly joke, and there's a little bit truth to it, I think, for everybody in the city, just because we are still a baseball town. I believe that in my heart and my soul, even though the good years have been few and far between of late. There is something in the DNA of this whole region that when the Reds are good, and I tell this to my son Danny. So I have 4 kids. I have 2 sons, and my younger son's my big sports guy. Danny loves sports. And
how old is he?
Danny is 19 now.
Okay.
And
that's your youngest?
No, I got one younger.
Okay.
I've got boys are in the middle.
Okay.
Girls are the bookends. And I'm like, man, you don't get it. I'm like, when the Reds are good in this town, I'm like, it's unreal. And the only time he's got to feel that a little bit, he was pretty young at the time, I think it was the year of the All-Star game in town, or maybe the year before, where they were just electric, and Frazier run the home run derby. So he got a little bit of it, but not since he's been, a teenager and a little older, and in a way that he'll really, really remember it, has he had an opportunity to experience what's been happening so far with this team. So it's great.
Is he a soccer fan?
FC Cincinnati in the Bailey.
It's wild, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's totally different. And for me, I don't know, I'm a little bit older.
Yeah, just a couple years.
For me, the soccer break, generationally, if you will, happened somewhere between me and my younger brother. So I've got 7 years on my younger brher.
Yep, you got 5 years on me.
Yeah.
Okay.
And somewhere in that time, because that's all my younger brother and younger sister played growing up. I mean, they played basketball too, and other things. But I never played soccer. My older brother never played soccer. Nobody I knew played soccer, but a couple guys by the time I got to high school, of course. But something happened, and then here comes Ronnie, and he's playing soccer, right out of the get. So I don't know what it is, but it's fun.
Yep.
And FC Cincinnati, you talk about an organization that just went all in from day one. To the meteoric rise that organization saw from minor league soccer to now, they're in first place in Major League Soccer, and they built a stadium, and they built it themselves, and they got it done, and it's a facility that is celebrated all around the world.
Yeah, there's a lot of worldwide event, like FIFA events and different things come to town, World Cup stuff. Yeah,
it's remarkable.
Yeah,
real and fun, even for a guy who didn't grow up with soccer. I've gone to some games. I've marched over from Washington Park, and they got the smoke bombs going off and everything.
It's fun.
Cool. How can you not get caught?
Yeah.
Even if you're not soccer person, it's hard not to get caught up in that.
I was at the game. I've been to probably 3 or 4 games. I was at the game the other night, and I'm pretty cheap and frugal a lot of times.
Preach.
Okay, but when you get those Diamond Club seats at the Reds, but I had these second row by all the owners where you get to go in the club, so on the field, right in front of the headbutt the other night. So I don't know if you saw the game. They were down 2-0.
I did. I absolutely did.
It was right in front of us. And I went, I haven't been this plugged in on a sporting event maybe ever.
Yeah.
It was like we were there.
Yeah.
So something about that sitting close, and I've sat up high as well, and it's not quite the same up there. But there was something down there on the field. That game feels different because I've never been a soccer player. Something feels different.
Yep.
I don't know what it is.
When you're at that level.
Yeah.
And I think it's almost because you're literally at the level of the players.
On the field,
which helps a lot. Yeah. And then if you ever get a chance, have you watched one in the Bailey yet?
No. I haven't. It's awesome over there.
Yeah, get in the Bailey because it's insane. Everybody in there is insane in the best possible
and
way.
Having fun.
And having a blast. Be prepared. You're not going to sit down.
Yeah, they never do.
Yeah, you're not going to sit down.
Beating the drums and all that stuff.
Correct.
So you said that they went all in.
Yeah.
Have you seen anything in your 27 to 30 year professional career across the board? So you have your law license as well.
I do.
Right?
Yeah.
Everything you've seen, people you've been around, have you seen anybody rise towards the top tier of their profession, whatever they're doing, without going all in?
I think it's awfully hard to be safe all the time and get to the top. I think you've got to be willing to take a little bit of a risk here or there. And I think that comes with that phrase going all in. You do it knowing you may not have a net sometimes. But yeah, I think to really get there, you have to be willing.
Like where you're at.
I've been very fortunate, and my path to what I'm doing is certainly a little different from how a lot of people go after it. But I like what I do very much.
The humility.
I like what I do. I do. I can't believe most days. Now look, everybody's got frustrations at work, right? There are things where I get so, God, why would we possibly? I have those moments just like everybody else does. But I get to get up and tell stories every day. Like that's my gig. That's my job. Who gets to do that? You know what I mean? Like if you can't be a little thankful about that, then probably shouldn't be doing what in this case what I'm doing. But yeah, it's pretty cool.
So what's Bob's attitude for life? Like, I'm not looking for and here's why I ask that. It's a direct question, but provide all the context you want. But because I think you are a guy who obliterates the idea in this question that most people have about themselves, about, hey, have I impacted enough people? Have I found enough purpose? Am I going out in this world and leaving people better than I found them? There's no doubt in looking at your scope of work that you're a guy who has impacted a tremendous amount of people. There's no doubt, man. And so I'm not a guy who just pours on accolades to people. I just try to call it as I see it. So what's your attitude for life?
I think when we're given an opportunity to be happy, we should take those opportunities. And I just want that for everybody. We were talking before we came in here, where I feel like we're in this time where we are so. You saw me when I was talking about work before. I'm like, there are some times where I get so mad. And it almost feels like we've been trained isn't the right word, but our natural inclination of late seems to be, I want to be mad about something. And don't get me wrong, there are horrors and atrocities, not just in this world, but probably somewhere right down the street, okay, that of course we should all be upset about as members of a community, as members of humanity. But if you are given some moments and you see some blessings in your life, it's okay to enjoy that, I think. And to enjoy that moment, hopefully in such a way that you help somebody else find their moment where they get to be happy and they get to enjoy. Clock's ticking for all of us. And if you can find a way to get somebody else to that place where they're a little bit happy, that's the best. It's the part of my job that 100% I love the most. I had to talk about some things today, like I'll get upset thinking about it, where they are stories that they're really hard to get to. I have a lot of trouble talking about stories where kids get hurt. That really, I have a lot of difficulty with that. But there are moments in our show where we're going to talk about a 5-year-old kid who started his own garden and is selling vegetables because he wants to buy a 4-wheeler. That's great. That's great. And when you can share something like that, or something goofy happens and I try to say something funny and it's usually not, but that's okay. I try. To know maybe there's a moment where if somebody happened to be tuned in right then, that maybe they're a little bit happier than they were the moment before. That's pretty cool, man. That's a pretty cool thing.
I think I've observed times in my life and others that sometimes it's all it takes is a moment.
Yep.
And something happens.
Something breaks. Yeah, the ice breaks. Something. Yeah.
So when you had The Bright Side.
Yeah.
So that came from an awesome place inside.
Yeah.
Am I correct that you're like, hey, I want to tell just the bright side of life.
Yeah.
Instead of some of the news being what it has to be.
Yep.
And you did that for a year.
Did it for a year.
Right?
Yeah.
And I watched the last episode.
Yeah.
And because I want to know why it ended. And I said, well, let me watch the last episode because I'll find out. And you said in the beginning, you're like, hey, I got some news. And I'm like, okay, he's going to tell us why. And it went on for 16 minutes. And I was sad about why you ended it.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that?
Sure. So we're in the middle of pandemic shutdowns and everything else. And
21 and 22.
Yeah, you're talking about a time, again, where I think people are just looking for something good. I know I was, because you're stuck and this is shut down and this many people are sick and all of the things. And remember John Krasinski?
Yes.
Did that's pretty good. Mm-hmm. That's a good idea. And what if we just did that? What if we and that was all we did.
Good, positive stories.
That's it. Nobody's getting shot here. Nobody's getting sick. Nothing.
Nobody's being abused. None of this stuff.
None of that. No politics. Good Lord, no politics. Good stuff. It's what you talked about before. Most people just want to take care of their kids. They want their family to be happy. Yes, all of that. So that's what we did. But it was an extra thing, right? And I couldn't do all of that with a lot of help with some really awesome people that I work with. And for them, it was also something extra all the time. And to produce all of that, to get the entire crew to stay after we've just done 5.5 hours of television on a Friday. Guys, can you give me a half hour more? It was extra for everybody. And I think after a year, it's not that I wanted to stop doing those stories, or even that any of them, if I hadn't asked them to continue on, would have. I just felt like I had asked for a lot for quite a while. And it was sort of a side project. It was not anything where
But if it became something, you would have stuck with it.
I think so.
So, and again, you're a super positive guy, but I'd love to talk about the reality of things too.
Sure.
And I could tell some sadness came through, even though it was kind of a relief and you're giving everybody a break.
Yeah.
But it's like, hey, this thing didn't catch on the way that you thought it would.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that right?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think it could have had
legs.
Yeah. It needed
more time.
It needed more help.
Yeah.
And maybe I didn't do a good enough job of approaching, my bosses in such a way and say, "Hey, I think this will go, but I can't push the rock up the hill myself every time. I gotta.
I need resources if we're going to do this, whatever it is."
And I wasn't doing it by myself. That made it sound like I was not.
No, but I think your point is, hey, if I would have maybe been more ferocious about this, but then maybe the numbers weren't there.
Yeah.
So whatever the thing was, there's a lot of things about timing in this world.
Sure.
Maybe something about it didn't connect. But here's what I saw was fascinating. I think when everyone talks about, do we call it the traditional news, the traditional media? I don't know what we're supposed to call it. I think we're all like, man, just the negativity, the stories that we're just bombarded with, that when you listen to them, it just brings you down a little bit of a notch. We keep tuning in. Why can't it just be more positive? I've even thought that at times.
Right.
Well, you did it.
And it didn't. Isn't that something?
Yeah.
You go back to the infamous saying, I don't even know where it comes from. If it bleeds, it leads. Right? What an awful thing.
Yeah, it's terrible.
But it works. Right? That's the thing. We get what we get because that's what we choose. Now, I say that with this addendum. We never put The Bright Side as a half an hour show on television. I don't know how. I wasn't able to convince people enough to do that.
Yeah.
We put it on Facebook. We put it on YouTube. Did okay. Probably did better on Facebook than it did on YouTube. I don't know. Yeah, algorithms.
From what I looked at, it did.
Yeah, and so you wonder if it had been approached in a different way, maybe it does catch on. But John Krasinski probably had a few more people helping him out than I did. Where's his?
But also, I guess maybe as I'm sitting here thinking about it, but I'm like, you know what? Maybe that's not reality.
Yeah, and that's a tough one because everybody you would talk to, or I would talk to, or these guys would talk to, they're all going to tell you, I just want more positive stuff. That has unfortunately been proven to not be the case, at least within the medium of broadcast. And maybe, I guess to a degree, cable news as well. Now, how much will things change as we get away and further away from this idea of sort of a linear approach to doing news, where it is just, it's a snippet here, it's a snippet there.
Is that going to happen, though? Because there's a new evolution of, it's wild what's happening on YouTube and some of these podcasts that are popping up.
Yep.
It's wild, and I'm taking a step back, and I'm like, man, there are millions and millions of viewers watching these random podcasts that come out. And I'm like, okay.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Is it the long form thing? Is that it? Because you can vet out these ideas?
I think so. And it's so interesting, right? Because within our medium, you're being told 30 seconds, you got to move 20 seconds. If it's just a straight VO, it's 20, 25, we got to get on to the next thing. But then we see in these other, you got your iPad right there. In these other environments, in the podcasts are what a great example. Mm-hmm. If you could go back 15 years, you'd have said, okay, here's what we're going to do. Here's what we're going to do. The future is a couple of people sitting in a room, right, with headsets on, talking for Lord knows how long.
About ideas,
about things. Sometimes about a specific topic, sometimes about 1,000 topics. I don't know why it works. By what everyone would have told you in terms of what's happening on broadcasting, it shouldn't, but it does.
But is this different? I mentioned two guys' names that I always looked up to, that I found myself as the younger Mark tuning into, like a Larry King and a Charlie Rose. Mm-hmm. And those were, I think, maybe 30 minutes and 60 minutes.
Yeah.
But Charlie Rose was a black background, mm-hmm. that brown table, mm-hmm. him sitting having a conversation with one up to 2 or 3 or 4 people. And that's all it was, a conversation.
Right.
So it was happening then.
But think about, now with Larry King, maybe it was a little bit different in terms of the reach that he had. Mm-hmm. When you're talking about broadcasting, though, right, it's probably not doing the numbers that a regular newscast is doing, right? But there is nothing that's broad anymore. Everybody's fine-tuning to exactly what they want or who they want, and I think that's the big difference. Now, if I'm a person who wants a longer form thing and I want to watch a Larry King do an interview, or Joe Rogan, or whoever the case may be, I can find that now. And if I'm not doing, pick whatever a broadcast newscast did in 1984, you're never going to reach that number on TV. You're never going to reach it. But online, people are going to choose it. And, you start getting into the business end of it.
You know whose fault it is?
Whose fault is it?
The weather people.
Okay, explain. I've got very good friends who are meteorologists now. What are you doing? I got to defend my friends.
I saw you defending them online, man. I'm joking. I think there's something that through all of this, if social media in this new form of media or interaction, whatever we're calling it, mm-hmm. I think we're going to have to start owning who we are as humans. We're starting to dig deep into the psychology and the subconscious of what makes us tick. Because even if we say we want positive news,
sure.
we tune into the stuff that's bad.
Right.
And so, boy, I'll click on my app and I want to see what the temperature is today, and I trust it, and usually it's right. Mm-hmm. But if they get that rain off one time,
or
some snow,
or if it rains in Cheviot, but it doesn't quite cross the river.
Listen, y'all should have had it down. You got to have people posted on every corner, reporting back as the cloud moves and makes changes.
It's so interesting when it comes to the information of things. Like I've tried to make this argument before that, okay, take a basic newscast today that happened on my station or one of the others. This morning. Okay. I haven't done a side-by-side comparison of rundowns. But if I were going to guess, I bet 70 to 80% of the actual stories, probably the same, right? There are certain things there's certain things you have to talk about today. We're waking up and the Reds are in first place. It's going to be cooler outside. Check down the list, right? So why do they watch the viewer, my place or the other place or the other? If the information's 80% of the game, what are they doing? Why are they making the choice they're making?
I'm assuming it's the personality.
And see, to me, that plays right into where we are now in the way that we are consuming both information and content.
Was that the right answer?
That's what I think. I don't know that it's the right answer, but it's what I think too. Is we are seeking out voices and people that maybe we agree with, or maybe we just, for whatever reason, that person clicks with us. It's why the job of influencer is a job today. 10 years ago, that wasn't a job. What does that mean? Right? But it is now And a lot of that has to do with you just click with that person.
But I think you had to do something in society to become an influencer back in the day. Maybe it was a movie star.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it was a Bob Herzog, the local news reporter and anchor you knew. Maybe it was the local sports figure, the big-time business person in town. And by default, we looked up to those people and wanted to be like them. We listened to them. They must know something. I think those were the influencers. And I believe that when a big-time coach or a big-time player got in trouble or did something wrong, it was be like, well, we've built them up to this such a place that they're influencing our behavior, what we do, what music we listen to, how we act. I think it could happen with somebody at church, your mentor. But now anyone can without doing anything to achieve it. Now, I'm not making an argument for it or whatever. If you go out in the marketplace and people want to listen and watch.
If they click with you, they click with you.
That's it, right? But it's weird to me that there doesn't have to be anything behind it. Maybe that's the rigidity of the 44-year-old, grind it, bootstrap it up, hustle, earn everything, nothing given.
And do you think some of that also comes from this place where we are in that there is naturally less trust for people who are in power?
Absolutely, man.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yep. I think I don't know. Like, I'm disappointed all the time that
I'm going to get that on a T-shirt for you.
I'm disappointed all
the time.
But here's what I'm saying, and we won't talk about, because you just got to stay away from that stuff. But the political environment, and I'll say this, you don't have to get involved, but I'm sorry, so I'll say it and just act like Bob's not here.
Okay.
But I see consistently the leaders that we have in our society now, not all of them, maybe locally, I just see them, and I'll be honest with you. I see a lot of people in my local community that I just feel that would just do it better and more right. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you get there and that's what happens. But it feels like, hey, listen, that guy that I saw growing up checking the boxes, not perfection, but checking the boxes, being the good dad, going out into the community and volunteering, impacting someone at their church or the local community club or what, just going out and just living for people. Not different than Bob Herzog does. And I'm like, that's the people that we should have on a pedestal, that we should look up to, that should be leading us. I don't know why it doesn't happen. I don't know. I can't explain this now.
Do you think it's that those people just don't want to get involved with it, or do you think it's once they're in the game, they change?
Probably both, man.
Yeah.
It's probably both. I'd love to think that if I can articulate this, obviously I have an idea on what I think would be great for someone to be a leader, but I don't know, man. I think you go there, and certain systems, whatever the system is, it could be bureaucracy of a local government thing. I think you go there, and these systems, they serve communities and us very well on a lot of levels. But it's tough to change things.
Yeah. And I think
best of intentions.
we're so cannibalized now that you're just in your silo, right? And we've talked a lot about social media and things like that. If you're only fed one thing, then you're only going to see the world one way. Now, I'm not talking about specific ways, and I'm
everything.
But everything. And I think I mentioned this before we started. We've gotten to this really unfortunate place where if I don't like it, it is not true. That plays into this distrust of, classical structures in which we put some trust. I don't know that many people have ever put a ton of trust in government. Perhaps in some branches, maybe more in this branch than the other, or this person more than the other. But because I don't know how we come back from that. I'll give you a non-specific example. It's better now. It'll be worse once we get closer to the presidential election again. But I would, in the same day, get an email from one person saying, "You're in the bag for so-and-so. You're all this, that, and the other thing." And then later in the same day, I would get an email from another person saying, "You're in the bag for that guy. You're in the..." No, I told you a thing that I didn't do the thing. I'm not the one who did that or said that or passed that thing. I didn't. I just told you about it. I get that you don't like it, but it's my job to tell you about it, just as I did the other person too. And it's very difficult. And I try generally to interact with folks when they come at me that way in a way that is both understanding but is also making clear, look, this is what I said. This is why the story that way. Here's maybe a little more information that this could be helpful to you. And every once in a while, you'll have that sort of breakthrough moment where somebody go, all right, it's cool.
But every once in a while.
Every once in a while.
Why is this? Do you have,
I don't know.
and do you, because this has to be an important subject for you.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's conversations with your friends / colleagues. Has to happen. When you're out at an event or having a little drink or hanging out, it has to be a frustration, because that's the sad thing for me. In business and in life, no matter the challenges I face, I'm like, hey, put your head down, deal with the hit, deal with the failure, deal with whatever thing, and just move forward. Find a way to keep going, because it'll pass.
Right.
But I feel so pessimistic around this idea. I do.
I'm with you. It's because you can't. I'm a fixer, right?
Yes.
If
You're
there's
a problem solver.
If there's a problem, I just want to fix it. Sometimes at home I get myself, because sometimes it's just listen. You know what I mean? But I like my thing, fix the thing, and I don't readily see how this fixes itself. Now, I'm a guy who's pushing 50. I'm sure if I go back a generation, 2 generations, there was somebody who felt the very same way I feel right now, because things tend to be cyclical. But it's hard to see how this road, we're not just on a road that we can't turn around from.
Do you think if we go back to the Depression,
Okay.
I wonder how that felt.
How that felt to people. Right.
World War II, when Pearl Harbor happens. I wonder how that felt.
Well, you had specific moments there where you had a galvanizing, right? Where there was an enemy out there.
Maybe the Depression wasn't.
Yeah. Maybe the Depression wasn't.
Right. But World War II, Pearl Harbor, 9/11. But I guess maybe 2 of these moments were probably that I didn't live through, and I'm wondering how desolate it felt, maybe the Depression and then maybe the Civil Rights era of the 60s. Maybe those are 2 moments.
Where people felt similar to how we feel now.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Right, maybe.
Yeah.
And I wonder if maybe I need to pick up some history books and maybe read some of those philosophers who figured things out, or some of the people in front of it. So,
you ever feel like you need to pick up a history book because there are things that we didn't hear about?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Yep.
Me too.
I do it all the time.
Yeah, me too.
So you're eternally optimistic, even though we talk about this pessimistic thing. This is fascinating, man.
We went down a very dark road.
Yeah, it was dark. But here's what's awesome. So in 2023, you are receiving the Joe Nuxhall Humanitarian Award.
Yeah.
It means you've done some things in life. You made some impacts, man.
That was a pretty cool morning. They do some incredible things up there for kids, for families, for adults too. Get them out, play some baseball. It's great. And to have you talk about sources of positivity and light. To have Teddy Kramer come in and tell me that was all right, man. That was cool.
Man, he stood up when he was presenting it to you, and you gave him a hug, and he said, "You're my best friend."
Yeah. Now I think, truth be told, I think everybody's Teddy's best friend, because he is the. Have you met Teddy?
Nope. But I've seen multiple times that's who he is. But here's what I'm gonna tell you is that he meant it.
He is just a great dude. He is a great dude. I've told people before, if you walk away from spending time with Teddy Kramer and you don't feel better, I don't know that I can help you. I don't know if you're in a place from which you can get out of, because he is that special. He has, I don't know, it's an energy, it's an aura. I don't know what it is. But I first got involved out there because of Sheila. Honestly, she's worked with them on and off for a number of years.
She set you up that day.
She sure did. Yeah, I didn't see that one coming at all.
You were mad.
I couldn't believe it.
No, you were. There was a moment, and you said it, but man, I picked it up when they said we're going to talk about something. I saw it in your eye. You were semi-pissed for a half a second.
Well, I'm like,
because you're like, what are you leaving me out of here? This was not cool.
Well,
Am I right?
I felt unprepared. You never want to be out there and be unprepared. You know what I mean? If there's a guest coming in, I want to know what the heck we're going to talk about.
The guest was already sitting there.
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
So the things they do, and Sheila got you involved.
And probably, I mentioned earlier that there's this great gift of my job where maybe I make somebody smile every once in a while. And so this sort of plays into that. Probably the greatest fringe benefit about my gig is I find out about events and I found out about organizations that, but for my job, I don't know that I would ever know about. And I think in some ways, not only does it balance out all of the awful things, but I think it is at least in part responsible for why, despite all of that other stuff, I still feel positive about a lot of things. Because there are a tremendous amount of good people who are really trying hard to do good things. And we don't get as many opportunities to talk about that as we would if The Bright Side was on television every day for a half hour, right? But I just have come to find these different organizations, like the Joe Nuxhall Miracle League Fields, like Free Store Food Bank, which everybody knows about, but smaller organizations too, where there are people doing great things. And when I will get a call or get an email, hey, can you come out and MC this thing? Yeah. Cancer Free Kids reaches out. Yeah. Of course. Why would I not do that? Why would I not? Compared to what their volunteers do on a daily basis, I'm doing so little in comparison. But knowing that I can come out and help with that, I can do that thing. And if that helps a little bit, why not do that? And to then be surrounded by all of these people who are there for one purpose, and it's a good purpose, and it's a positive thing. It's awesome. It's awesome. It's the best benefit of my job, is finding out about stuff like that.
How do you find time for all this stuff, including family? I mean, man, you do a ton. Because you got the same 24 hours that all of us have in a day.
I think if you look at it as an opportunity to do something you enjoy, right? We all find time in our day to do things that we enjoy. And if you can look at it like that instead of as a chore, you find the time. You find the time. It's great.
So Netflix and Amazon Prime doesn't show up too often on a TV?
I'm trying to get through Jack Ryan. I'll get there eventually.
6 episodes. I just finished the last.
Did you get through it? Yeah, I'm trying. I'm like season 2, barely. But
and I don't watch a ton of episodes,
right,
or shows,
right?
I
but
really,
it's pretty good.
Yeah.
I feel like we've been doing a whole thing for John Krasinski today. I don't know what that's about. So this weekend, I got to tell you about this weekend. Yeah. Okay, so there is this. It's now an organization. It started out with a little girl who wanted to have a lemonade stand. Right, Peyton's lemonade stand. Here's this little girl when she was little. She decided she wanted to raise some money, right? And she did. And now, her parents were obviously behind it for the first one too, but now they've created this thing. And on Saturday, there were more than 70 of these lemonade stands set up all around town. raising money, helping out kids, giving kids an opportunity to do something good. And it's a story. Catherine Robinson was one of our reporter anchors for a while. She's not at the station anymore, but Kristen Cornett came in. She did the story this year, and I just went out. I just went out to like 5 of them, just to do. I wasn't doing a story. I just wanted to go. Now there's a lot of them on the west side, which helps, which made getting to 5 of them maybe a little easier than it would have been for some.
Just stay over there. Don't hang out with any of the rest of us. Just
a lot of good people over there.
Just
a lot of
stay.
good people. But no, I went out to like 5 of them, right? And it's just these families. Again, the second time I've gone back to something you said. I think there's a lot of people who just want to be happy.
I run into them every day,
and
man.
just want their kids to be happy, and that's what these people were doing. They could have been doing it. It was 90 degrees.
Were you the original conduit for the Peyton's lemonade stand? Were you?
No. I mean, I remember it from the first year, but I didn't go out and do the first story or anything like that. I just, when you watch something like that and you watch it take off in that way, who doesn't want to be part of that energy? That goodness, that's good.
So what if that's all our world was full of?
Wouldn't it be great?
Feels like it would.
Wouldn't it be great? I think we, and I'm not a huge conspiracy theory guy. Maybe I believe in a few, but
well, there's some true conspiracies.
It just feels like we spend a lot of time worrying about, and I don't mean politicians or whatever. Maybe they're responsible for feeding some of it to us, maybe. But we make the choice. Just like watching bad news instead of good news. We make the choice to worry about some things
that are completely out of our control.
And will have zero impact on our lives.
Yep.
Zero. Yep. What are you getting upset?
Why do you think that
about?
is? So if we go to some why is that?
I don't know.
Because our lives would be better if we don't.
Right.
And it seems like we should have control over our minds and have an approach to life. Like,
man, you're a fixer too, aren't you?
I am.
I know. I could tell.
It's just like, show me a problem, and maybe I'm a guy who complains a little bit about it, but I learned not to. Yeah. And I'm like, let's just talk about the solution.
Right.
Yeah, it gets me in trouble at home a little bit too.
A little bit,
right?
Every once in a while.
So how about your experience with graduation at West Point?
Whew.
So your son's in the Army.
He is.
Right?
He is.
So that's out there in the public world. I'm not talking about something out of bounds
you're not talking out of school
right?
at all. I'm very proud. So
okay,
it's out there. It's out there.
So what about that? And that trip you guys took this summer together, I bet that you'll come back to those couple weeks that you spent with him probably your entire life.
Yeah. It'll be 2 of the best weeks of my life. No doubt.
So what about this guy? He's probably a special guy. He's your son, so you're going to say good things. But I bet he's one of those ones that are going to really give back to the world and society.
He is. Sam is. All my kids are special. All my kids are great, right? Everybody says that about their kids. But Sam is unique in that he was born 50. He's one of those guys, right? Like he just an old soul from the get. Just an old soul, and has a almost like a moral code that feels like he was just kind of, it's just in there. It's just in the mix somewhere that he's just got. And it's funny, my wife and I have reflected a lot that him going to West Point should have been zero surprise to us. Like we should have seen that coming down the track all the way, But yeah, his graduation was emotional. Because you're just beaming with pride, but there's this little voice in the back of your head that goes, he's out there now. He could be in
some unknowns, man.
He could be in some stuff, and that's coming. He's got officer training. He's going to go to Ranger school and stuff like that. So, but that 2 weeks to try to get back to that for you a little bit. So Callie and I, my wife's Callie. We decided, we got 4 kids, that after graduating, she would do something with girls, I would do something with guys, right? So with Sam, I'm like, what are we doing? Like, what do you want to do? So he had been overseas doing some stuff with West Point already, because I was like, if you want to go, wherever, we'll go. You tell me.
Backpack Europe, wherever you want to go.
Whatever you want to do. He's like, I've been out of the country quite a bit lately. He's like, let's go back out west, because we, as a family, we took one other trip sort of out west and did a lot of hiking and stuff. I'm like, done, man, we're doing it. And so my wife and I were both kind of putting together itineraries, right, for this, like 12 days, give or take. And, you know, she was like, you'll be here and you're going to do this, and you for a couple of days this. I'm like, okay, we can do that and that'll be great. Or we can go as hard as we can go to as many places as we can get to. You know, like there's benefits to both, right? You know, instead of spending like a day and a half or 2 days in Yellowstone, maybe you stay there 4. Well, that's great, but then you got to cut something else out. So he's like, let's just go. Let's just really get after it. So we flew into Portland. He had never been to the Pacific Northwest before.
It's awesome.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So we get out to the Oregon coast, right in the park where they shot some of the scenes for Goonies. Goonies never die.
Lucas didn't direct those, right?
He did not. He did not. There's still excellent work. So we did that, and then we would like hike and drive, or drive and hike. This is kind of how we did it. So we started there, you know, did, was it Haystack Rock, did Cannon Beach and all that stuff. Headed about halfway from that point to Glacier, spent the night, got to Glacier, hiked Glacier, dropped down, did Yellowstone, did Teton, drove out, did Mount Rushmore, did Wind Cave. We didn't do Badlands, just felt like we had to go. We had to move. Went down, we did Arches, we did Canyonlands. We were going to do Crater Lake. That was going to be our big finish. Called the ranger station a couple days out. They're like, we got so much snow still, you're not going to be able to get down to, like, you can get up here, it's still beautiful, but you can't get down there. So I'm like, there's some stuff in Idaho. Idaho crushed it. I wasn't expecting Idaho to crush it. There's this waterfall in Idaho.
There's like Idaho Falls. Is that a thing?
Shoshone.
Okay.
So I'm definitely saying it wrong.
Figure it out.
But I think, if I read correctly, it is bigger than Niagara Falls. You're just driving through Idaho, and it's Sam's like, unless this waterfall is in a hole, where is this? And then we drop down this hole, and there's this waterfall, and it's huge.
Going into a big lake?
Yeah. It's unbelievable. And then Craters of the Moon National Monument, also in Idaho. Unbelievable. It was great.
So Idaho was awesome.
Idaho was all, we didn't, and unexpectedly awesome. I mean, they were all, every place we went, we had a.
Did you paper map it?
No. But, well, I didn't paper map it, but I have the itinerary, everything wrote out. Okay, we're here. It's going to be 4 or 5 hour drive to get to this next spot. So we got to be done hiking by this time in order to get here by this time. That kind of stuff.
Is there an app to use for that? Did you use an app or just kind of?
Nah, just was kind of winging
GPS'd it, Wazed it, whatever it is.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Let's Google the next place.
We had, when we were in Teton, we had a bear encounter.
I was going to say, did you the grizzly stuff?
Now, we were in the car. So we're deciding where we're going to hike in Grand Teton. There's two different hikes we were considering doing. We're like, well, this one you can drive up to the lookout, point up top. So let's hike the other one, because then we can hike this one and drive up this one. And it's a doggone good thing we did that.
Lucky.
Because if we'd have hiked up that one,
you'd run into him.
We'd have run right into him. These mama grizzly, 3 cubs, and they were like year-old cubs. So these were big bears. Walk right down the street at me. Like, I'm looking up ahead. I'm like, why are all this car stopped? I'm like, ah! This
How big? How big was Mama Grizzly?
This makes for good podcasting.
Okay.
I'm going to show you this video.
Yeah.
I'm going to show you this. Mama is big, and Mama's got some claws.
See, that's the scary thing about grizzlies. They have all those teeth, but I think one swipe of those claws, it's game over, right?
It's bad news for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did she walk right by your car, what you're about to show us?
Right by my window.
Stop and look?
Head right here. Head right here. I'll turn the volume down because we said some words.
How'd you feel about that? We're going to find out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Here, check it out.
We're going to have to put it on the mic a little bit or something, too.
I got to be careful.
It might be some bad words.
Yeah, it's some bad words.
Okay, well,
maybe we won't. I'll let you look. I'll just let you look at the video.
Oh, that's a big bear, guys.
Yeah. Right? And that's just Mom. The other ones haven't started coming down the hill yet.
You're trying to find them. You're wondering, like...
I'm like, what's going on? Are there more out there? And they look at your face. They come right at the car. Look, watch her claws as she's walking right at you.
Well, she's still, like, she's growling right now, and she's calling her cubs, I think. She's just... Everybody stopped, like, this bear runs this entire area.
And at one point,
Oh, there they are. Oh, those are big cubs.
right?
Yeah.
I didn't know that cubs stayed with mom quite that long, but apparently I guess they must stay for a while. Sam at one point's like, "You probably start backing up now." I'm like, "Dude, there's a car behind me. I can't back up."
Oh no! So we're gonna keep going here. So keep talking about something. I'm gonna watch this. So right now she's with the cubs behind her.
Yeah.
Let me keep watching.
She's gonna
this.
keep walking right at the car. She goes right next to the driver's side window.
She doesn't even care.
No.
Like she's making sure nobody's messing with them.
Right.
But
I mean, and again, I'm in the car. If I'd have had to, pound on the gas, I would have.
she kind of looks hungry. She's not big and big fat. She kind of looks like.
Well, they probably have only been up from hibernation for what?
Oh, here she comes.
It's unbelievable, right?
Oh no.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, see, this is stuff about. No, this is stuff about nature that we can watch. Just let me watch National Geographic, man.
You don't need to be that close.
No, because this is crazy. This is like coming up on a hyena out in the safari, man.
Well,
this is not good.
I just kept thinking, what if we weren't in the car?
Yeah, what happens? Did you have the bear spray? Did you have
we absolutely
Does
had
that
the bear
work?
spray. They say it. No, you're not supposed to like spray them like mace style, like in the face. You're supposed to. Hopefully, you've seen them far enough. Yeah, you spray it. I think at the ground. I don't know, like 10, 15 feet in front of them or something to kind of almost create a cloud that they won't come through.
So that's all you had, bear spray.
Correct. We had a force field. That's it.
Okay.
But it was awesome.
Yeah.
I was with my kid. I'm never gonna forget. I'm never gonna forget that. I'm never gonna forget.
So if he was a 50-year-old man at 5,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
What is he now?
He's kind of maintained that. He's maintained that. He just, just an old soul. I don't know other way to describe it. I can remember when he was little, like little, like 5, 6. He and my dad were off going to museums. They were going to Civil War battlefields, stuff like that. My father-in-law, like that made him happy.
Was he easier to raise? Because none of them come with manuals.
No, none of them come with manuals. That's for sure.
So was he easier because of it? Were there different challenges?
I think maybe different in that I always wanted to make sure his curiosity and his intellect were fed. Yeah. But never, pretty easy to handle.
You know how all the other kids, here's why they should be okay with Sam being who he is and doing all these big things. I didn't go to West Point.
You're all right.
I'm cool. It's good.
You're all right.
And see, I think we have to, in life, what we have to do, and I don't know why this is happening, we have to stop comparing ourselves to others. What we should do is just like, let's look at somebody who's doing big, great things, appreciate that they're here in our world and our space that they are, because they're going to make us better, and then not compare yourself and like just go do your thing.
Yeah.
Whatever your thing is, just kind of make sure you do it well.
Yep. Yep.
Make sure you take some next steps, go to the next level, do your own thing, run your own race. Now run the race. But it doesn't have to be on that track.
Right.
It doesn't have to be the same pace.
That's been the neat thing with my kids is they have varying interests and they all sort of do their thing, which is cool. You know what I mean? They're all doing. Danny's he's over at UC right now in aerospace engineering. Emma's junior in high school, so she's still figuring out what's next, and Chloe's off living her life in Philadelphia. So yeah.
So how did this? Was your wife public school as well?
Yes.
Because you're Oak Hills.
Yes. Correct. Yeah.
How'd these 4 kids end up like this?
I don't know. I don't know that we did anything different or special or that anybody else does.
You don't have conversations about it?
I mean, we talk about their differences and how each kid, same house, right? How did this go? But not in. I think we both see it as such a positive thing that they each have their things that I don't know.
But they're going
sometimes don't question it. It's working.
No, but what's so fascinating is that, man, I see families like this that there's 3 or 4 siblings, and they're all kind of doing their thing well. We didn't talk about what's happened in Philadelphia, and we don't have to, but you said aerospace engineering.
Yeah.
A dude went to West Point.
Yeah.
Right. There's some things happening here.
Yeah.
Because if you could give that to the entire world, if you could, our world would be a better place. It just would be. Was it intentional? So that's what I'm wondering about Bob when I came in today. It's like, was his life intentional?
I've had a lot of people and circumstances pour into me in really positive ways. And I think to do anything less than trying to do positive things would be to dishonor those people in those moments. You know, I had great mom and dad who poured into me, grandparents who poured into me. Growing up in my house, my older brother Mike, Cincinnati firefighter now. He was my Fonzie and my Richie Cunningham. Get that?
Mm-hmm.
And I end up with a gig where I sit next to John Lomax.
But how much of this is happenstance and luck versus some intention? See, I'm not saying that if you live an intentional life that there aren't some bad things that happen. There aren't some things that we could look back on. It's like, yeah, I probably should have done that better.
Yeah.
But if you have an intentional path that you've set about the way you're going to live your life, you can pretty much manifest it in a way. I'm not talking about like if I leave today and I go out here, unfortunately, and it says green and I go, but someone else blew through the red and some bad things happen and I'm not here. It's all going to enforce at some point. But if that happens, that's one of those things that's just bad luck.
Yeah.
It's bad luck. I don't know what the reason is, but it's bad luck. So there's these things that happen. You could have a bad manager. Somebody could think they were marrying or entering into a relationship with somebody that's good and things change. Those things happen. But if you set a path for an intentional way that you want your wife to go.
Yeah.
Hey.
I think I knew very early that I was going to be a guy who really wanted a family someday. So I know that there was intention there, that I wanted to be a dad. I think there was intention there. I think early on I recognized that I enjoyed being a storyteller very much, with absolutely no idea that I might end up doing what I do today. I had a lot of ideas on what I might do or what I might want to do.
You got your law degree.
Got my law degree. And that was a maybe this isn't going to work. I better do something because I'm a dad. I better do something because that's the most important thing. I better do something.
See, that's intention.
I better do something. And that's how law school happened for me. I'm not sure this is going to work. Now, what's funny is if you go back to when we were talking about being all in, so you ask yourself in that moment, wasn't really all in then because I went over here for a minute. But I was all in with my family. And I saw that maybe that's where I needed to be. But I kept one foot over in the other thing. We can go back there if you want.
But what happens when you go to Chase Law School and then you come out and you work for probably just some law firm for a year?
Yeah.
How do you then make the jump to then become a traffic reporter?
Yeah.
What happens there?
Okay, how far you want to go back?
Well, as far as you want to.
Okay.
Because I'm interested in the story to say there's a lot of people that are going to come after you that right now are 23, 25, and 27-year-old people.
Sure.
And they might not come upon a John Lomax. They might not have as great of an opportunity in dad that you had. They may not have those things.
Mm-hmm.
But if we can know, like, hey, that guy who lives this life receiving these awards, impacting these people, this is how he did it. You can do it because he came from a similar place.
Right. So for me, whenever I start a story about how I got on this path to be this thing that I am in terms of my career, I literally always start in the third grade. And that might sound stupid, but it's absolutely true. In third grade, I was cast as speaker number 1 in my Christmas play. Right? That sounds silly. But to this moment, I remember the very first line I said on that stage. I walked out and I said, that wassail sure was good. Never had wassail, but I sold the line. I remember coming off of that stage one day, being so filled with energy from that moment of telling a little story on a stage where I had probably 5 lines. Something happened that day. As I've looked back, that ultimately at least put me on this road. Okay? 6th grade, musical, got into school. This is always the part of the story that people can't believe. I got into 7th and 8th grade. I was a shockingly shy kid. And I was very shy even in that third grade Christmas play. And I was, back when people actually answered their phones at home, which nobody does anymore if they even have phones, I would never answer the phone. I was too afraid to talk to someone. Outside of my very tight group of buddies, like in the neighborhood or, a couple guys at school. Shy. Really, really, really shy. But in the 9th grade, so at Bridgetown Junior High.
That's big time.
Go Beavers. They're now the Bobcats, which, yeah, Beavers.
That's unnecessary. That didn't need to change.
Didn't need to change.
Yeah.
Great fight song. Anyway. They had this.
Sounds like you have some trauma over this.
I've gotten over it. It's the Bobcats now, so my name's in the thing, so I try to claim that. It has nothing to do with me. But they had a talent show, called Talent Town.
9th grade.
9th grade, and because our junior high was 7, 8, 9, so technically your freshman year was still at the junior high. And I loved watching stand-up comedians when I was a kid. I remember watching on USA, staying up watching them. And so I put together a stand-up comedy routine. This shy kid who won't talk to anybody, but still somehow loved telling stories. Figure that out, right? And I got up. My mom loves to tell the story because I got in. Like I made the show. I made the show. My mom loves to tell the story of coming to see that show and looking up and going, who is that kid? Just because she couldn't believe that I was able to do that and not just be terrified. Because whereas in maybe the 3rd grade play and the 6th grade thing, I was doing a role. I was just doing a thing. That was me, up there talking to that microphone, which is a little different animal. And really, from that point forward, I just started involving myself in more and more things where I was up and doing and telling stories and doing things. You get to high school and you do, your student councils and vice president of my class, and I emceed the pep rallies.
See,
dude, that was me. My senior year, I'm the rah. Let's go. Loved it. Loved that energy. Loved that positive stuff. Okay. Graduate from Oak Hills. I'm going to go to Xavier. Here's where it gets ready. This is okay. I'm going to zig when you're maybe expecting me to zag a little bit. So I mentioned earlier, I think, that my dad, God rest his soul, was a doctor, and did fairly well in school. And so I think it was always kind of assumed, or at least if nobody ever said it to me, it's the thing I always assumed people expected, that I was going to be the doctor. Bob does pretty well in school. He'll be. So when I started at Xavier, I was a natural sciences major, which is essentially their pre-med program.
Could have been that or biology, right?
Yeah. And so, I'm going through and I'm taking all the stuff and whatever. And that sort of...
Organic chemistry, how was that one? It's the most brutal class ever.
That's when my moment happened. I'm not kidding. So I'm going through, and all these things that I had kind of found my way into by the time I was finishing high school, where I'm up and I'm telling stories and I'm doing things, it's gone. That's all gone. I'm taking organic chemistry. I'm taking comparative anatomy. I'm doing all the things you do. I can't believe you said organic chemistry. My hand to God. I am sitting in organic chemistry class. This would have been my junior year, I think.
That's when it happens.
And I'm sitting there, and it wasn't like I was failing. It wasn't about that. I'm just sitting there, and all of a sudden I'm like, this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. It was literally as simple as that. This is not where I am supposed to be. And I walked out that day, and we were getting to the point where we were going to be scheduling for the next semester. And I just took any class that would let me talk. Speech class, acting class, interpersonal communication, whatever. I didn't know what I was going to do other than I was going to be in classes where I was going to start to talk. And I'll never forget, I going to try to talk to my dad. Like, of all the things, I don't want to disappoint my dad. I'd rather my dad be mad at me. I don't want to disappoint my dad. And so I go to him to have that conversation. I tell him, Dad, I don't think I want to be a doctor. And his reaction was not like a negative thing. It was more of a concern, more of a what? Then what are you going to do? And my response, I'm going to be a storyteller. Like, what is that? What? I had no answer.
In the 90s.
Yeah, that's not, yeah. I've got no real answer to that.
There's no destination. You
Yeah.
didn't have the path charted out.
No. But I go through that junior year, taking all those classes, spending a lot more time in the communications building. Got an internship that summer at a little radio station, and it was, this is great. It was actually just down like 2 exits from here. It was in Florence.
Okay.
11:60 a.m. At the time, it was WBOB. Come on. For real. Look at it. Really a thing. And their format was Northern Kentucky sports. Not all sports, just Northern Kentucky sports.
You didn't know shit about that.
And I'm an intern. Like, I'm getting coffee. There was no internet.
Did you go out to my alma mater of Connor High School? Were you out there?
I was not, because I was in there. I was already doing mornings. I would come in before class every morning, and I would rip AP wire, actual pieces of paper, to hand to people. And that's what I was doing. And so I go through my summer between my junior and senior year, and I continue that into my senior year, where I'm going down there and I'm doing this before I'm going to class. I'm in these classes I love. I'm doing plays at night. I'm getting up at 2 o'clock. I'm 20. I got all the energy in the freaking world. I'm doing stuff I want to do. Let's go. And I go in one morning, and the guy who was normally in, like the morning guy, wasn't there. Some other guy was there. He's like, "Hey, Herzog." I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "You in every morning like this?" I'm like, "Yeah. Yeah, I am." "You ever been on the air?" "No." "Today you're my news guy." That's literally how my broadcast career began. So I walked in one day, and guys like, "Today's your day." And I was their news guy. By the end of my senior year of college, as I was in our town. I was George Gibbs in our town. Oh my gosh, so fun. Doing all these things. The little 1160 station I worked at in Florence had like an FM sister station in Dry Ridge.
Oh, yeah. I know those folks.
Used to be in the old bank vault. I don't know where the studio is now, but literally it used to be in an old bank.
It's down off 25 still. No, it's not in the bank anymore.
It was 106.7 or 6.5 then. It's 6.7
Yeah, it was
now,
country
I think.
for a while and stuff, yeah.
That's when I was there.
Yeah.
So I end up moving down there. They give me a business card that says Bob Herzog, news director. I'm like,
I've arrived.
I'm already here. Thank you very much.
$7.20 an hour, but I've arrived.
But I've arrived, and I'm spending more than that on gas just to get all the way down to Dry Ridge from the west side.
And gas was
every day.
$1.10 a gallon.
That's right.
Let's
I'm
be
still
real.
running out. But no, it was great. Like I loved it. Like when you know what it's like when you're doing stuff you love. You can't stop me. I'm not tired. So I'm doing that. I got to give you my quick 106.5.
Hey, I'm
story.
here all day for
Okay, because this is
You're the one that needs the nap, but
this
you
is
don't feel like
I
it.
do. I'm talking about cool stuff,
Get him
man.
another water, guys. We're
So-
going to keep it going.
So this is one of my favorite stories from that era. Garth Brooks is coming to town.
Oh, yeah.
Think Garth Brooks mid-90s.
97, 96, 97,
Oh.
98.
Just
A superstar.
there is no one, and maybe in the universe, as big as this guy, right?
Yep. Michael Jackson may have been the only, something like that.
Correct, something like that.
Yep.
So he's coming to town. I don't know how many concerts he did that year, but it's like 4 or 5, whatever he did. Sold them all out. Well, what I didn't know is the guy who I had never met, who's like the general manager of the station. Because I'm college nobody. I'm there from 4 o'clock in the morning till 7, and then I go, take classes all day. Never met the guy. He got to meet Garth because I guess all the country radio people got to go. And he taped some liners, and I didn't know that. So I go in the next day to do my little news report. And before I, a little sound effect comes on, time for news. Literally, hey, this is Garth Brooks. When I'm in Northern Kentucky, I get my news from Bob Herzog on Mix 106.5. Dude, greatest thing ever. I could barely contain myself. I get through my news report. DJ comes on. He's like, "Hey, man, what'd you think about that little message from Garth?" I'm like, "That was the best." He goes, you want to hear what that sounded like the first time he did it? I'm like, please, don't
ruin it.
Don't
make me.
It's a button. Hey, this is hey, this is Garth Brooks. When I'm in Northern Kentucky, I get my news from Bob. What the hell's his last name? The illusion just gone.
Don't meet your superstar heroes is what they say. Don't meet them.
Oh,
Right? Don't meet them.
man.
So,
Hilarious.
yeah, that's awesome. Man.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're probably, what are you, 22?
Ish. Yeah, give or take. And so I'm doing that.
So real quick, though.
Yeah,
Go
yeah.
back to
Yeah.
that conversation with your dad.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Terrified to have the conversation. Again,
Yeah.
not because I thought he was going to be mad. I knew he wasn't going to kick me out of the house. It wasn't going to be anything like that.
when he said, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
How'd that evolve over 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months? How did that, your interaction with him?
Yeah. I think he got to see me doing things that I enjoyed. I can remember him coming to see me in plays at Xavier and supporting that and being, at a time where I think it could have been easy for him to not. Here's this kid who always did pretty good in school. He's doing a student written one act. What's that going to do for him? But I never got that from him. I never got that vibe from him. And I think first he saw me enjoying myself, but then he saw the tenacity with which I approached getting an internship, taking a job that was going to force me to wake up in the middle of the night to go do before I went to class every day. Like, he saw me start to grind at it a little bit, and then it became, okay, like, if you're putting that much into it, then okay. Like, I think that helped, that I wasn't just not doing anything. I think it helped that I was grinding at it a little bit. And by the time I got out of school, I had taken another job at I was telling you beforehand. I took a job at a place called Traffic Watch, which was in the Carew Tower, which basically for everybody that didn't get traffic from John Phillips up in the helicopter, they got it from Traffic Watch.
Okay.
And so that's what I was doing for a while. Now, there was an upside and a downside of that gig. So the upside was I was on a lot more stations, getting a lot more sort of opportunity to, I guess, get my name out there or whatever.
Yeah, to establish a brand.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. But the downside was it was literally you sat in a booth barely wider than yourself, and just as you got to each station, you just click a button. Now I'm on Warm 98. Now I'm on 1530. Now I'm on whatever. And so I missed the great thing about Dry Ridge is, you got to have that back and forth, have those moments. This was strictly cutting the hill's a mess. Lachlan splits back to, blah. So I got to a point in that job where I'm like, this isn't it. That whatever this is, this isn't what I'm graduated from college now. I've got a job sort of in the business, or at least in a business where I'm kind of storytelling, but am I really? So I see a notice. It was in either City Beat or maybe Everybody's News. Remember Everybody's News?
I don't remember that one.
Yeah.
But wasn't there another one, too, in addition to City Beat? I thought there was another, entertainment publication, but I don't know.
Something like one of those publications in Cincinnati. I'd grab one. And I see an advertisement. They're looking for somebody to be part of Art Reach Touring Children's Theater Company. Like, hey, sounds kind of fun. So I went to this audition and I got it. So I leave my radio gig, and I don't know if you remember being in school and seeing a troupe of 20-somethings come in and set up a couple flats in the gymnasium and do a show.
I did some stuff with a thing called Tri-County Players for a little bit.
You're with me, okay?
Yeah, I had one or two.
So I did that job for a while. I was first year I did it. It was Legend of Sleepy Hollow. Mm-hmm. I was Brown Bones and the Headless Horseman. I got to wear the Headless Horseman costume. Scared kids to death. It was great. And for older kids, we did Red Badge of Courage. That's a tough sell for middle school. Then next season, Sword in a Stone and Shake Hands with Shakespeare. But I did that for like a year and a half. But married, starting a family. Not a high paying job. That changing into your King Arthur costume in the custodian's closet, you know. So what am I going to do? And I can remember at that time, I was taking all kinds of different gigs, right? Because some days you tour, you do 2 shows early, you got the rest of the day. Some days you maybe didn't have a show. So I was substitute teaching. I was with this touring children's theater company, taking voiceover gigs when I could get them. For a while, I was the voice in the parking garage at Argosy Casino. You're parked on the blue level. True story.
So inspiring to go in there and lose all that money. Good
Yeah,
job, Bob.
yeah.
Made them feel better about themselves.
You're welcome. At least you found your car.
On the way out, I promise your day's going to get better.
That's right.
Is that what it was?
That's positive.
Thank you for visiting.
No, I just recorded. I have no idea. But one gig I picked up, one year, I'm bringing my dad back into this. I had taken a job helping out build the Christmas setup down on Fountain Square. It was some fellows I knew who had done some theater stuff around town, you know, working on sets and that kind of thing. And I'm up helping put this setup up, and it's cold, and it's freezing rain. And I'm on the scaffolding, you know, tool belt, whole deal. And I look down, and there's my dad. Now, my dad doesn't know I'm down here. It's just a gig that I'm doing. Don't know why he was down. There's no reason for him to be downtown. And I looked at him, and he looked at me, and his look said to me, "Are you sure you got this? Like, are you sure?" We never spoke about it. Never talked about seeing each other that day. I took the LSAT within 2 months to get into law school because I wasn't sure. And I got a family now, and I can't screw that up. So, get in law school, and you know, it was a Chase. The great thing about Chase, as a little pump up for Northern Kentucky, is they, you know, I'm 3 years out of undergrad now.
Yeah, they got a 3-year and a 4-year program.
Yeah, so you can if you need to take some stuff at night because you got to work a little bit during the day, we'll figure it out. They'll figure it out. Now I was still able to get through in 3 years. I took some stuff in summer and all that kind of stuff, but they worked with me, which was really, really great. But I started that because I wasn't sure. But I kept doing shows, not with Art Reach anymore, but with the Children's Theater of Cincinnati. I still do shows with them today because I love it. And I think it was before my second year of law school. I see another audition notice in the paper. This time, it's for what was then WB64.
I remember that.
When it was the WB network, which doesn't exist anymore. Mm-hmm. And on the weekends, they always had like a movie marathon. We're on like 2 or 3 really bad movies that nobody probably cares to watch very much. But they had a couple of local hosts. And it was Dave and Lana at the time. But Dave was leaving. And they needed a new Dave. Promise of a new Dave. Anyway, so big cattle call audition. I just really weirdly sang a Paula Abdul song there, by the way, and I apologize for that. And I went to the audition, and somehow I got this gig. And so
that's Bob and Lana.
Bob and Lana. Lana left shortly after. I hope I wasn't the reason for that. But then what's really funny is Jen Dalton, who I still work with now, got the gig. And so Jen and I have worked together on television on and off since 2001. But so here I am going to law school. I'm substitute teaching. I'm doing voiceover stuff. About 10, 12 hours a week it takes to shoot our interstitial things for the movie marathon show. Because that's what it was. You come on, you would talk about the movie a little bit, or you would talk about an event going on in town and just generally try to be sort of funny and entertaining. And now back to the movie. So I'm doing all of these different things as I'm going through law school. So even though it was, maybe I can't make this work, let me go ahead and try to keep a foot over there just in case. Just in case.
So steer me back away.
It's a weird path.
No,
man.
here's
It's
what's
super
awesome.
Weird.
But I think I've realized the glue. It's probably your wife.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm hearing all these things you're doing, man.
Yeah.
And without knowing anything about her, I'm like, whoever that person is,
Got to be a real understanding
yep,
person.
and special.
Yeah.
Have to be.
Yeah.
Because there's not a lot of people who would be all in at that level.
Yeah.
Because I'm sitting here like, wow, man. There's moments where she's third and fourth, even though you're all about family.
Mm-hmm.
You have to make money. You're trying to get a degree. You're trying to secure your future. You're doing all these things.
Somebody's going to be holding down the home front.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And while you were doing, and what I've realized about life is, your significant other, when you sign up for things,
Mm-hmm.
you're by default signing them up for the same stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
And what they have to be for you in the quiet moments, which are limited when you're just trying to build a life, they have to be supportive in so many of those moments. There's challenges like go crush life. I'm in this with you.
This is a lady who is so supportive. Oh, man. This is... I don't tell this story very often. This is a pretty good one. I was at one point, this would have been in roughly the same period, literally sending audition tapes, get ready, to Lucasfilm, trying to convince them that this absolute nobody from nowhere with no experience is your Anakin Skywalker. I have a letter from Lucasfilm that they sent back to me that said, I don't know how many different mailers I sent them with things, a lot. But they finally sent me back a letter. Said, we have your materials. Thank you so much. We've sent them on to our casting office or whatever. But this is a lady who stuck with me even during that insanity. Right?
Yeah, man. I mean, what I know is that reflecting on my life so much that, because see, there's dark moments that we're not going to get into and share today, but you're waking up and going to bed with something you're trying to create that hasn't been created yet. And doesn't matter how positive you are, there's all these moments where in the midst of a random day when it's tough, you're like, man, is this worth it? Man, is this going to work out?
Yeah.
Is this the right thing for my family? All these things. And in the midst of that, the very few tight people that you're around, your dad in moments,
Mm-hmm.
your significant other, your wife in this moment, if they aren't there for you in those ways, your life turns out different. It just does.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take hundreds of moments, but it's those big ones that maybe there was some of that self-doubt, maybe there was some of the self-talk, maybe that was going to win the day and week, because we're all vulnerable to that at times when life's tough. And there's no way you get here and build this family with these 4 kids and sit where you are now, traveling this non-traditional journey without having a very strong small group of people. There's no way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why a lot of people have poured into me. There's no doubt. So,
Why?
I don't know. I really don't. I have no idea, other than getting really, really lucky.
You got to earn it too, though, man.
But I'll tell you about. Let me give you the moment.
Yep.
All right. This is the moment. So, doing this thing at 64, I'm going to law school. I'm doing all this stuff. Right. Somewhere in the midst of that job at WB 64, I had made some contacts with people who do local like movie promotion stuff. Like, we're going to give away free passes to check out a premiere of blah, whatever. Well, somehow I convinced some of those folks to get me on the list to be. This was back when they still did press junkets, where they would fly sometimes people from local markets out to go talk to people. Like, you got, it's the between two ferns. It's the interviewer, it's the movie poster, it's the star of the movie, right? So I start to do some of these movie junkets. I got to one of the Madagascar movies. I got to talk to Chris Rock, and I, talked to Jada Pinkett, and did, pretty cool. Ladder 49 with Travolta and whatever, did that one. So I'm on this list, right? So that's really cool. Mm-hmm. I finished law school. Passed the bar, working for this law firm. Dan McKinney, God bless him, said, I know you like doing that thing on TV. I know you like that. It doesn't take that long. If you want to keep doing that, you keep doing that. Sweet.
Yep.
Okay. So still got that foot in the door. I'm through law school. I've passed the bar, and I've still got that foot in the door. I get to the point where a full-time job opens up at Channel 64, where it's like the promotion events person, okay? And I've started doing some of these junkets, and I can see maybe a little crack of light, you know? And so I always tell folks, you know, the conversation I had to have with Dad about not being a doctor, now I'm going to have one with my wife about not being a lawyer. After she's gone on this journey with me, right? I'm like, but if I'm down there every day, maybe I can do a thing. Maybe I can make a thing happen. I don't know what, but maybe something. I get more opportunities, whatever. I'm there every day. Right now, again, 10, 12 hours a week. That's all I'm doing. So I leave my job at the law firm, take the full-time gig at 64, and I get an opportunity to go do the press junket for Disney's Chronicles of Narnia, Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. They're going to fly me to London. Now, I'm not getting paid for any of these things, but I'm getting to do these things. And I'm sitting at the airport. Okay? I'm not practicing law at this point. It's a very important part of the story. I'm sitting at the airport. I've undoubtedly got a flip phone because this would have been like 2005. And the phone rings, and I answer it, and it's Callie, and she's crying. Never a good thing when your wife calls you and she's crying. Hon, what's going on? Her dad, my father-in-law, God rest his soul, had seen a list. Now, God knows how Mark saw this list. But Mark's that kind of guy, where he would have seen this. Of course he would have seen this list. Every year, the Supreme Court of Ohio puts out a list of attorneys who are about to have their law licenses suspended. Guess whose name is on that list? Me. Not because I've done anything.
Doesn't matter.
I just don't have any money. I haven't paid my dues to the Supreme Court of Ohio. So I haven't paid my dues. You have to keep up your dues. I'm not practicing law. I don't have any money. So I haven't paid my dues. Not a list you want to be on, though. She's crying. I start crying. And I tell her, I said, hon, you know, when I get back, I said, I'm going to call Dan McKinney. I said, I'm going to get my gig back at the law firm. I said, this is it. I've whatever this thing is, whatever this is I'm trying to do, ain't going to work. This is it. I'll do this junket. I'll come back, call Dan. This would have been sometime between Thanksgiving and Christmas of 2005. And that'll be it. That'll be it. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And I hang up the phone, and I'm literally sitting in the airport. The dream is dead. I don't even know if I know what the dream is. I only know that it's dead. 10 minutes later, Elbert Tucker, the news director at Channel 12, calls my phone. I've talked to Elbert a handful of times probably over the last 3 years at that point, just trying to figure out a way to get in. You know, I do not have a traditional journalism background. How am I going to get in? How am I going to get in? They used to have a guy in the morning named Chris Baelish who did very featurey stuff, and I'm like, I could do that. I know that would be my way in, you know. But I think that position kind of went away. And but Elbert calls me, and I'm literally still sobbing. He says, Bob, what are you doing? I'm going to London. So I kind of get it together, and I explain to him what I'm about to do. And he says, as soon as you get back, you call me. I think we got something. I tell Elbert all the time, I'm like, man, you changed my life. With a phone call, you changed my life. And if you talk to my wife, she will tell you that she hung up that phone, and she just started praying. She started praying when she hung up that phone. And I called him back when I got back from London. My first week at Local 12 was between Christmas and New Year's. 2005. And the thing that got me in, ultimately, was a trip back to traffic. Nobody did traffic on TV at that point. I think the only station maybe that had started at that point was maybe Channel 5. Because buddy of mine who actually graduated Oak Hills a year before me, 2 years with Pete Scalia, was their guy. And so that was a thing that everybody was starting to create. And Elbert knew about my background, having done, radio traffic and that kind of thing. And that was my in. And I never looked back.
Is this some butterfly effect stuff?
Yeah, I get chills thinking about it because I remember that phone call.
Do you and her talk about that at times? Just not really. It's like,
not
hey,
really.
It's just
it's sometimes if I have an occasion like this where it's come up, or I go to visit a group where they want to know sort of how I got the journey. I give them sort of the Cliff's Notes version. So we'll kind of we'll mention it, kind of reminisce on it a little bit. But
when
it's
did
significant?
So your dad made a big impact on your life, no doubt.
Yeah.
He was a man of few words at times, it seems. Is that right, or am I wrong?
I think that's fair. I think that's
because if you had that connection, you up on the ladder, and neither one of you addressed it.
Yeah.
Did he ever tell you he was proud?
Yeah.
When did that happen?
Yeah, it's funny. I've maybe heard it more from people who were his patients than I heard it from him.
That's special.
Like he would, they would say he would, how proud your dad was, and that gets me. And I the last time I saw my dad before he passed, I was playing Gaston for the Children's Theater of Cincinnati down at the Taft. And he came to see the show. Sometimes they do like an autograph session for kids who are in the kids club, like down the side hallway or whatever. So technically only people who are in the kids club are students, but there's my dad, and he's taking pictures and being dad. And I didn't get a chance to talk to him. And he called and left a message on my phone, which I didn't get until later. And he just said, I hope you know how good you are at what you're doing. He said, but you probably get that now. That's the last.
I think that's enough.
Yeah.
For life.
Yeah.
That happens.
Yeah.
I mean, that's enough.
Yeah.
Because see, if you go back and I kind of figured, I'm like, that's the guy he is, because he didn't just slam you, man, when you're like, hey, I don't want to be a doctor. Because that happens.
Yeah.
And that, unfortunately, does put some kids on a
different path.
It just does. And there's something inside of them that constrains creativity. It constrains like the what's possible in life. It constrains them taking risk. It constrains, I think, maybe to the heights that they can climb, because there's something inside that the person they looked up the most that told them they were doing wrong, and they they just conformed to it. And I see that. I'm not saying it's always a bad outcome, because parents just want great things for us. But yeah, you had to have that. This combination, man, of that and your wife and your kids and your wife, I think, as long as life goes as it's planned to go over the next 10, 15, 20 years,
Sure.
I think that you've got a shot to make that period probably more special than this entire journey you've traveled. It feels like it.
It's wild to think about the time that we're in right now. Because with my business, if you look at it strictly from that standpoint, not a sort of a family standpoint, I don't know what my job looks like in 5 years. And I don't mean mine personally.
Yeah.
I mean the job of a local news anchor guy. Project that out 5 years and somebody try to tell me what that looks like.
No way. You can't tell us 18 months down the road.
I don't
man.
think so. I don't think, because it's changing so much. It's changing so much.
When go ahead.
Have you heard of a thing called ATSC3?
No.
Okay. So in broadcast circles, that's supposed to be the sort of next incarnation. We went from to HD, recently. The next thing, as I understand it, is supposed to be this thing called ATSC3, which, if it happens, may change the game a little bit for broadcast, in that it will allow potentially you to pull a broadcast signal right down. Remember old little mini TVs with their little antennas used to come out? But imagine that being able to just go right into your phone without an app. It's just essentially a broadcast signal, but a digital broadcast signal.
It's like a satellite phone somewhere or something.
Yeah, but it's free, right? Because over-the-air is free. Imagine that. It's not a streaming service. It's good old-fashioned over-the-air TV. It also is, I understand it, is going to allow for...
Is there ads in there? Is that how it's funded?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and targeted ads. So I can have ads in northern Kentucky from somebody watching over there, different than somebody who's watching on the other side of the river.
We do that with the real estate company.
Yeah.
Agents, like if you're walking by, like take Main Strasse down in Covington,
Mm-hmm.
a real estate agent can actually buy software. It's wacky, man. It's a little bit intrusive, so I think it's why so many have steered clear. But me and you could be walking by Cock and Bull,
Mm-hmm.
and pops on our phone an advertisement for the local
Crazy,
realtor.
isn't it?
Same type of thing, right?
Yeah.
Same type of thing. It's like, wow, based on vicinity, maybe it's targeting ads, how Facebook, until there were some changes. I think, so this is framed as a good thing.
Yes.
Survival.
For the broadcast industry, absolutely. It's sort of, I don't want to say it's like the white whale, but it's certainly a thing that there are a few eggs in that basket.
Yeah, it seems like to me, it's like, that's feasible.
That could be a thing.
That could be a thing.
That could be a thing.
How I interact with this device,
Yes.
right? A way for it to compete with the Spotifys, the Pandoras, the YouTubes, all that.
Right.
And if I have to pay for the service and it's just ad-based, I might be willing to listen to some ads for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see where that goes. But I only say that because even with that,
You don't
if
know
that happens, I don't know what the job looks like.
what's
don't know.
what's the job look like? Like for me, I could have my real estate license and sell homes as long as I'm upright.
Yeah.
And as long as clients want to hire me.
Mm-hmm.
But for you,
Mm-hmm.
what's the longevity look like for someone as an anchor?
I don't know.
Okay. Do you think about that?
Yeah. It scares me.
Yeah. There's always a young buck coming up. It's like being a quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah. And it's, for me, honestly, it's less about that, not because I think I'm anything special, and more about the technology, the state of we talked about it before we came back here.
Yeah.
It's broadcast TV. How much broadcast TV are you watching a day?
I don't watch it. I just don't watch it.
I know.
I don't. But here's why, though. It doesn't meet me when I want it. For me, as I look at it, I'm like,
Right.
It just doesn't.
Right. And so that's the trick for everybody in any business at this point, right? 'Cause
Convenience.
This is important to everybody.
Yep.
But how do you take what you put in here and monetize it successely?
There's a lot of smart people working on it, though, in your business who
There
don't
are.
want the industry
are.
to go away.
There are.
Right.
Yeah, and I use this phrase with somebody the other day, and I think it's right, that you'll have to win in the aggregate. You're never going to get the size of audience as you did in broadcast, even in local broadcast, and you're never going to get that again, not in one place. And so you're going to have to win in the aggregate. You're going to have to figure out a way to make dollars through partnerships within an Instagram, within a TikTok, within a whatever.
How does someone do that within these institutions, though, and all the bureaucracy?
I don't know. I don't know.
Because I think it's threatening to so many.
Mm-hmm.
There's someone who came on here recently. I can't believe this is a guy. We can talk off air, but he recently resigned from his position. So what he does in Cincinnati is the top of his field.
Okay.
And cool guy. Got to know him because of this. And this conversation we had is awesome, but he called me about 2-3 weeks ago, and he said, "Hey, Mark, I want to thank you for something." And I told you before, whatever it is, I don't know why, but I'm like, okay, man, like, that's fine. Let's get over let's get through I should just sit gracious and say thank you for acknowledging me. Thank you for I just don't do well with it. I don't know why. I just want to keep going. But he says, "Hey, thanks." He said, "My last day is August so-and-so." And I went, "What?"
Oh, so you didn't know that from your interview?
No.
Wow. Okay.
Here's what he says. He said, "Hey, I want to thank you." I said, "For what?" He said, "It started my mind thinking." And I instantly said, "Ho, ho, ho." And I wasn't dressed. I said, "Dude, you ain't putting this on me." Because
Yeah.
I'm like, this is serious. You've been doing this for 20-something years. You ain't putting this on me.
Right.
That's not what I'm trying to do here, man. I'm trying to help some other people like weave through their careers and decisions they can make and hear a story from Bob and other people to say, oh, you mean if I just keep going, it may work out.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean if I try some things. So he calls me and I said, I'm going down a path with this about threatening bureaucracies and people don't know what to do. He said, after leaving you, I started seeing what's possible. He came in, used the studio a little bit. We've helped him do some stuff. And he said, my board called me and said, you have to stop the YouTube and social media stuff you're doing. And I went, man.
That's rough.
That's just not the way how my brain is operating.
Right.
It's like, man, that is not the right approach.
No.
I don't know exactly what is, but I know that's not the approach.
Yep.
And so he said, man, I was taken aback. He said, because the position I'm in, when I do all this social media stuff, by default, it reinforces my position of being the director of this thing. The board comes back and says, absolutely not, you have to stop. So he started calling people in his professional network around the country, around the world, and they said, well, we see where you're coming from. Are you in a position to walk away and do all this other stuff? And he said, hey, it opened up my eyes about some possibilities. And I sat here and said, man, if it's good for him, great. But, man, that's going to hold so many people back from maybe surviving, from thriving. So I don't know if you're running into that. If you do, or do you get to drive creative?
I think, I don't know if I get to drive it a little bit, but I at least get to have conversations and have recently had conversations with people who I feel like drive the decisions. And I think it is so incredibly important to have people who can see those things, who can see whether it's YouTube or whatever, who see that's not a bad thing. That's a tool that I have to figure out how to use. Threads. Why am I on Threads? Because I don't know if it's going to go, and I got to be there. Why do I make TikTok videos? Because everybody's there.
Yeah, see, I think they should take something from this because, what was it, your Dance Party Fridays?
Yeah. 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 Oh. When I think about, again, the good fortune that I have had and the things for which I can mark things on a timeline of my career, that if you'd asked a consultant, should you ever do this? It would have been no, heck no, and oh my gosh, no. But I've been around the good fortune, again, to have people who trusted me enough. Elbert, who hired me. I remember him one day after Dance Party Friday kind of started, literally say, I trust that you know where the line is and that you won't cross it. Think about that.
That's trust.
This
man.
is a broadcast CBS affiliate,
top
number
30 in the
one.
country.
Yeah.
Yep.
Going, okay, this is different, obviously.
If you get in trouble, I get in trouble.
Right.
I trust.
But I trust you. Yeah. And that was, you talk about a thing that was just a whim. That was not a plan.
Mm-hmm.
That was.
So that's a great director. There's some leadership things there.
Yes.
Right? To recognize talent, to recognize someone who's capable and go all in with them. You're talking about delegation at such a high level. He even delegated the authority to put both of your jobs on the line.
Yeah.
That's significant.
Yep.
But he recognized what you had. He knew what he was dealing with.
That was the time that, so we were owned by Clear Channel at the time. So we had access to their entire music library.
Huge.
And could use it, right? Now the problem, the reason we don't do Dance Party Friday anymore, music licensing, strictly. Like I think a lot of people thought, well, he became an anchor, so he can't do it anymore. I'm still pretty goofy, but that's strictly that's a cost thing. But one morning, it's like 5:45. Not usually a heck of a lot going on at 5:45. You know what it was? Do you remember? This is one of those early viral videos. Do you remember Evolution of the Dance, where that guy did like every popular dance move from like 1950s on?
I think I do. I think I remember some of the videos.
So
yes,
that I think was just fresh.
Was it one video?
It was just one guy, one video up on stage.
Yeah, I remember it.
I think that was in my head. I called upstairs to the booth. I'm like, hey, I got nothing going on. I'm going to show a couple cameras. I said, play some music or something, and I'll just dance around. That's it. That was the entirety of the thought process that went into Dance Party Friday.
Is that the producer that's in the booth that you're talking to?
Producer, and it would have been producer and director at the time. So the director would have been Dave Sackman, who actually is a producer now. He's like, all right. He didn't even tell me what song. I think it was George Clinton, I think.
That good one.
I think it was a little Atomic Dog he dropped on me.
And it pops. Did it hit instantly?
Okay. I knew, and there were no viral things. There was no social media things to that level. Like, it didn't explode in that way. It literally was the next week on Friday. Gets to be about 6 a.m. I didn't even think about doing it. Like, this wasn't something that I did that day and thought about doing again. I just did that day. Friday goes by. The next Friday goes by. I start getting phone calls and emails. Hey, man, why don't you do that? Why don't you do that dance thing again? Oh. This is just somebody in town. Mm-hmm. I'm like, really? So I kind of did it again, kind of goofing around. And then it just became a thing. The first time it went viral, it didn't go viral. It went on Anderson Cooper. Yep. You know, it went on, I don't know, some overnight show.
You remember the
on
things
Fox.
They said? We're like, this crazy anchor.
Yeah, look at this. And, you know, and a lot of, in my newsroom, by golly, that kind of thing wouldn't fly. You know, a lot of that.
But it was on their news.
But thank you. And what I always remind people of, because I get it. Look, first of all, I'm not everybody's cup of tea. I get that. I'm a little high strung, and that's okay. I don't have to be. But I watch the news to see the news. Yes, of course you do. But I'm now on a news program that's 5.5 hours long. This is 2 minutes, and it might make somebody smile. It's worth those 2 minutes. And if there's something huge going on, I'm not going to do it, right? And so it just became this thing. And then I started writing parody songs with it, and I'm singing live on television. What?
Yeah, but the funny thing is, man, is you look back into your life.
Yeah.
And you're pulling parts of experiences, of expertise, of talent, because that stuff happened. It felt comfortable because of the theater.
Other things, yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
It felt comfortable because of those moments.
Yeah.
If you wouldn't have done those things in a previous life, it's funny, but this
never
would have. It wouldn't have happened.
No. But I can remember when the dance party popped. It was one where Jen Dalton came on with me. That one popped. Then I wrote a parody for "Let It Go" from Frozen. That was my first truly viral.
Yep.
It was everywhere. What is happening? Thing.
Were your daughters going through it too? Was that a thing for them? It was.
It was Emma, my youngest.
Yep.
You know, was all about some Frozen. All about the
That stuff went. That thing went national.
It was.
It was crazy.
It was the craziest one until the makeup thing. Mm-hmm. The makeup thing remains the what is. Why did this hit? Why? There's nothing special about this. I'm nothing special. Why is this everywhere? When BuzzFeed called me and said, "Can we use your video?" I'm like, "Yeah, you can use my video." I don't know why.
See, you got to find out, though. We're in this world now where it's essential that we find out.
Yeah, and that we keep trying. And that's when I talk to people who are in the business. They're not going to do the things that I do, and they shouldn't.
No,
they should find their thing.
Mm-hmm.
And to the extent that you're willing to share that thing, because for us to be successful at my job, at what I do, because of the lack of trust that's out there generally, I feel like it is incredibly important for people to know who I am as a human.
Man, you're the person that they want to be.
Well, I don't know about all that.
No, that's what's happening though. When you're up there dancing, you know what they're thinking? Oh my God, I would never do it, but man, I wish I would. Yeah. It's like when you get up in karaoke. Sometimes you have to have a drink or two before you're willing to, but then that person who gets up and just is having fun, no matter, you're like, that's who I want to be. I think that's it. There's something about this. We listen to it, and it's like, oh, well, he's kind of weird normal.
I'm going to get that on a T-shirt.
Well, but it's
that's good.
Right? Because he's a normal guy I can relate to. Like, this is everyday stuff. But he's doing stuff that I just don't have the confidence to do. But, man, I wish I would.
Yeah.
There might be something. There might be something, right?
Well, and I think that's saying in a different way what I'm saying. Like, find your thing.
Yeah.
Find your thing, and don't be afraid to push that out there a little bit.
And it'll come across as sincere.
Yeah, because it's just who you are.
So what's the volume that we have to try things at in this new world? Because, man, it is.
I think it depends on what you're doing. You know, I think if you're doing what you're trying to do here, or you're doing what I do, a lot.
Yeah.
But here's the upside, and I was talking to some folks in our creative department. Here's the upside to that. It ain't broadcasting. It ain't a limited amount of time. It's not finite. It's as much as you want. You can try something. It doesn't work. All right, who cares? Move on to the next. If you want to erase it, erase it. Now be careful, because once you put it out, it's out. Like, you can't do anything stupid, because you can't hide from that. But the more important point is, if it doesn't work, move on to the next thing. But try. You got to try.
Did you instill that in your kids?
I hope so. You know, I think, just as with anyone else, I think you can kind of get caught up in this place we're living right now, where it's pretty easy to get negative about stuff. And look, they see Dad when he comes home and he is tired, and he is
grumpy a little bit every once in a while.
A little bit,
yeah.
And you know,
like, we don't know that guy. Can we get that guy here?
Yeah, had to tell all those stories about some really horrible things that somebody did to a kid.
I don't have time to give you all Dad right now.
Yeah, I can't. I gotta rest a minute. You know, I try not to do that too much. I try to be the
present,
the dad who is I'm totally comfortable in dorky dad role like that. It's sort of my
Does it work?
Yeah, I hope so.
The dad jokes.
Yeah.
Do you just land them?
You understand? I have shirts that just dad jokes. It's how I roll. Oh.
What's the shirt you want to have made that you haven't yet? Because there's something about a shirt. You've mentioned it twice when I've said stuff today.
Well,
what did I just say? What did I say? The weird normal?
Weird normal. He's kind of weird normal. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, what is it that you want to make?
I don't know. I just like a little turn of phrase. You know what I mean? A little play on words that maybe nobody else has said it quite that way. Mm-hmm. You know, I just like that stuff.
Do you write your own material, being an anchor?
For like regular hard news story, producers overnight are taking care of that. You know, I'll go in. I'm reading through, obviously, to make sure I know what I'm talking about. And sometimes you'll change the phraseology a little bit, just because I'm like, there's nothing wrong with that, but it'll come out of my mouth better this way. Now, if it's a little bit looser story, I have a little more.
Does the ad lib thing, does that really work well?
For me, it does.
Yeah, I can tell it does.
I don't know if it works for everybody, but sometimes I talk about not having a net. I kind of sometimes when the red light's on and you have no net, that's when the magic happens. You know what I mean? We had a story today that was about, I guess, Kanye, or just Ye.
Yeah, come on now.
Ye. Well, that's the interesting thing, is that's where I ad-libbed the story, because we were talking about Kanye, who is now Ye on Twitter, which is now X. And so I had a script.
There's some context.
It just didn't come out the way it was written.
But isn't that okay?
I think with a story like that, you're okay.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, you're not going to mess around with certain things.
Yes.
But yeah, I think so.
How fun is your job still?
Most of the time, a lot of fun. Because I got a great crew that I work with, amazing people that I work with, and that's Aaliyah, that's Sheila, that's Jen, that's Tara, that's our reporters. But it's also Blake, who's on prompter, and it's Chuck, who's on camera 3, and it's Zach, who's floor directing, and it's Shelby in the booth, or it's Rory in the booth, or Ryan in the booth, whoever. You know, producers have the worst, not worst, toughest job, because they've been there since 11 o'clock the night before, putting the show together. And I think because of when we work, it's sort of this foxhole mentality, like it's us. We're the only ones on this island.
Do you realize when you're sitting there at the desk or standing up, do you connect with you're talking to all of us?
Yes. Well, I don't know that I realize the breadth of how many people, but I always remember that I'm talking to people. Because I think if you're just talking into the lens below the red light, that's no good. People feel that. People know that. Another John Lomax for you. I call them my Lomaxiums. The morning show, and this is even more relevant now. It's the only time people have truly been in the dark. Because we're always connected now. We're always plugged in. Always. Except for when we've been asleep. He said, you're reaching people when they are at their most vulnerable. They're in their underwear. They're tired. They're trying to get their coffee going. That's when I'm talking to them.
So you got the best slot.
I think so. I think it's changed. I think it's changed a lot. How many people stay up late to watch news anymore at 11? That's not me cutting on our 11 o'clock show at all. I don't mean it that way. I just mean the way, because we've been eating it all day.
Yep.
We've been consuming it all day already.
Yep.
And so
I don't know anyone.
The challenge you've got if you're on the late show, and I think we do a really good job at it, is having something that is unique, something that you can't find on this yet.
It's got to be, man, because
we
got Netflix and Amazon and these shows at our fingertips.
Correct. And the information at your finger. That's the key. And that's even circling back to what we were talking about. Why do people watch this station instead of that? If the information's everywhere,
it's a personality.
They better kind of like who they're watching.
I know that I brought up Charlie Rose multiple times, but it's funny, the reason what connected me with him, it was probably 15 years ago, and I started watching him at night. It was something about that slot. I think it was 11 o'clock. It was either 10 or 11 o'clock at night. I didn't look at the schedule and who was going to be on. I tuned in because I don't know what it was. I don't know how but he was an awesome conversationalist and interviewer. Obviously, I'm not the only one that thought that, or he wouldn't have had that very long-running show.
I think a really good interviewer does a couple of things. They listen like crazy. You're going to go into an interview. You're going to have certain questions that are kind of in your head if you've done your proper research, right? But you got to listen. Yeah, you got to listen, because it may go somewhere that you totally didn't expect. That's better. That's better than you would have come up with. You've got to know. You've got to be willing to make that turn. So I think there's that. And then I think when you're approaching somebody in more of a biographical kind of way, and you're not necessarily approaching them for a specific story where I've got to get this information, you have to be willing to accept that everybody's got something that's fascinating. Even if they've never won a World Series, or they've never been president, or if they've never whatever. There's something about their human experience that is different, or it's unique, or something. And you have to treat them as such and find that. And that's fun. And that's
the competitive challenge of it.
And it's cool to want to find that about people, and to earn their trust to a degree that they want to open. They want to share that with you, and then share that to everybody who's going to watch. That's a trick. That's a gift.
So I tuned in because of him. But every once in a while, the only time I would shut it off was if the subject matter, if it really, and I wanted a wide breadth of things. He'd have people on. He loved Shakespeare. He would have people on talking about Shakespeare festivals all the time. Sometimes when I found 3 or 4 actors sitting around a table talking about a movie, it wasn't as interesting as it felt like they were there to promote the movie.
Sure.
Even though he was trying to have good conversation, but I loved the randomness of it. And I think that's what Rogan has hit on.
Is he'll have anybody in.
Yes.
Yeah.
But what I find myself tuning out on in him, I'm just not all about the MMA stuff. Now, those guys are best in the world. You'll die in 30 seconds if they get a hold of you. But that's not.
But if it's not your thing,
I just shut it off. But he doesn't hit it. It's only about 10%. But there's random stuff. He'll have the beekeeper from Texas. He'll have the guy who's doing the regenerative farming next to the other one who doesn't. He's talking about alien. He talks about conspiracy theories and JFK, all these things, but I tune in because that guy, he's smart, man. I don't know if people have listened. He has a memory that's incredible that he uses, but he's truly interested in unlocking the person and finding out, like, why are you?
Right.
And what about that thing's interesting, and what can I learn from?
Yeah. And what can I learn from?
That's it. That's the curiosity piece, which is awesome.
So I got to go out and cover the Super Bowl, which was fantastic. Me and my buddy Cliff. Okay. Now, I'm an inside cat at this point, right? I'm on the air for 5.5 hours. I don't get out to do a whole lot of stories. No time. Got to go out and cover the Super Bowl. Got back in touch with how much I enjoyed being able to dig into something a little more. Something positive. Something fun. I get back from covering the Super Bowl. My buddy Tanner, is my 9 a.m. producer, says, hey, there's this bar that's opening in Over the Rhine that's like half comic book store, half bar. Called Cosmic Gorilla. You want to go do a story? I went, yeah, I do. Cliffy, you want to go? Yeah. So we go, and we do this story. This would have been, right after the Super Bowl run. So maybe March that year, and we came away from it. I'm like, look, neither one of us have time to do this. It's not our job. This was almost, in a way, it was the next bright side. Mm-hmm. What if once a week we picked a thing? Good thing, positive thing, different thing, whatever, and did a story. We did. And
I bet people start tuning in. I'm just assuming. I don't know.
No, it went really well because it was something we initially did just for the morning show.
Yep.
But then it ran at 6 a.m., and then it ran at 9 a.m., and then it ran at 5:30 p.m., and then it would run a couple of times over the weekend. Gets posted online. Anyway, it becomes the series. I pitched him on the title. I'm like, what do we call it? I said, everybody knows What About Bob. I said, where do we go? What about it, Bob? And that's
your take on it.
Yeah. That just became this. We've done stories about the history of Geta. We've talked about the Duke Energy trains. We've gone up, into Waynesville to cover the festival up there to do, again, just different little. Why is this a thing? Why does this guy in his backyard have a shed filled with 500 snakes? Why, all these different.
So, but the middle book?
Yeah.
So
Pender's great, by the way.
So, awesome guy.
Yeah.
So I said, guys, as we continue, so what you're talking, it's like this hyper local thing.
That's it,
dude. This is
That's it.
Yep. And so I said, guys, what we should do is let's keep doing our podcast. Let's put one out a week. Like let's really regionally launch some special people here. But I said we should just take the 100 Things book
and start knocking them out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
I know I'd be interested by that.
Yep.
I would be. It'd be something great. We've got him here. We're gonna have to end this soon. I can tell he's gonna need a nap.
No. I'm trying to find something for you.
So the 100 Things, and I said if I was someone who was watching, like I'd be interested. And if you told me it was going to be on, could even do something live.
Yep.
If you told me it was going to be on YouTube Live or out on Instagram or Facebook,
yep.
1 o'clock every whatever, 4 o'clock every whatever, I'd tune in
because it's different.
And it's our city. It's our passion.
And it's a deeper dive. One of the other things I've talked about with people in my business is winning in the aggregate. But I think the only way local survives is not less local. It's more.
Absolutely.
It's more local.
100%.
And even more so.
100% it is.
So that's my series of stories.
Of course, R2D2.
Yeah, that's a guy who builds Star Wars
and
robots.
Baby Yoda.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. See that this stuff wins.
Yeah.
But then you know what we have to do?
Yeah.
We just have to make it a priority and say, go do it.
Yep.
Go all in. But I know that's the answer because at some point, what are we talking? This has to be. It has to be and.
Mm-hmm.
Has to be.
Yep.
It has to be and then even those things highlight everything else. So that's the answer.
That's the 100% yes. You got to go out to Schmidt Bakery and have a cherry thing-a-ling. You got to do that.
Yep. But then you know what the next level is? I told him, I said, guys, if we're serious about this, yeah, here in another 12 to 18 months, see, I want to be number one at whatever I do. I don't know if it's going to be number two, but I want to be number one.
Sure.
We're going to be number one in some space with this thing we're working on because we're not going to stop. But then once we're number one, carry that on. It's going to be a destination for everyone who wants a little bit of airtime with what we're doing with content. But I said, let's go to Louisville and do it.
Because if we feel this way about our town, they feel that way about theirs, and they got their things.
It's the unlock, man.
Yeah, I know it.
And so you can have the central channel, the central YouTube channel, but you can take the 100 best things or 100 things every city.
Yeah, you're franchising it out,
and then
in essence.
But then what will happen is I'm interested in that too. Mm-hmm. Not just Cincy.
Yep.
I'm interested in Louisville. It's no different than a Rick Steves traveling Europe and talking about all the different countries and what's special about them. Those are all those places. I'm never going to get to all of them. Right. But wow, how cool is it?
But I can drive an hour and a half down the road.
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
Yep. And all the cities. Nashville's only 4 hours away. Columbus is 2 hours away. Indy's an hour and a half. Chicago's 4.
Yep.
Okay, so
Yeah.
But then
I think you and I have this figured out.
Right. We just have to do it. It has to go beyond an idea, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That tends to be the trick.
What do you think? What do you love about our city? Our 2.2 million MSA. So our city, I'm including Westchester,
the region, right?
Yeah. What do you love? We're homers, but what do you love?
My go-to on this,
Yeah.
and I mean this from my heart. This town, this region, this area, it is as big a town as you want it to be, or it's as small a town as you want it to be. If you want it to feel like Mayberry, you can do that. If you want to feel like you're going to go have a night on a town, you can go hit Ruby's and see a Broadway show. It's anything you need it to be, and it can be a different thing one weekend from the next. I like that there is a sense of community on the whole, but also community even on a smaller scale. I like that there are West Side, East Side jokes. I think it's hilarious. I love that when somebody in this area, hey, where'd you go to school? They don't care where you went to college. Nope. They could care less. They're talking high school, and you better have an answer. You know?
What if you don't, though?
I love, well, then you got to go. No. It's fun. But the funny thing about that is we act surprised when people, like, if they've moved here from elsewhere.
No, but
like,
what if
do
you're
you
like,
mean?
no, but what if you're like this? What if you say Bridgetown? And they're like, no, high school. You're like, no, Bridgetown. Like, that's where it ended.
That's where it ended? It's a different conversation. That leads us down a different path. we have to go somewhere else. Okay. The next question would be, so what parish were you in? Then we could default to that maybe.
So what? Why are we sports crazy?
Ooh.
What?
Ooh. You mean generally as people, or in this town specifically?
All I know is this town.
Yeah. It's. Whew. And what a time! What a moment we're living in. Can you imagine it? Reds are a half game up in the Central right now as you and I are talking. Now, we got to get that calf fixed, but we're all still really excited about the Bengals. We got to get that contract signed too. FC Cincinnati's number one. Like,
until Messi comes to town.
Like, this is happening right now. I don't know what it is, especially with how long suffering some of our fan bases have had to be. But it's when our teams are winning, it affects the community psyche. Like, that is a real palpable thing. I don't know how much you remember Ghostbusters 2. Mm-hmm. Do you remember the ooze?
Yeah.
And if everybody was happy, the ooze did good things. Yep. And if everybody was upset, the ooze was no good, right? Like, the ooze is good right now. It's real good ooze. Like, that slime is kicking. I love that. By the way, the fact that you could go on a Ghostbusters 2 reference with me, I really appreciate it.
That's my favorite one, too.
Right. Like, it's really good. It's highly undervalued.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, good.
But, man, the downs feel so bad.
Yeah.
They feel so bad. And I'm mad that I'm a fan in those moments.
Yes. And I think you can be a fan and still be upset with the team. Like, sometimes when things are going good, some folks like to be on that, well, even when they were terrible, I was still, well, I mean, that's great. And you should be very proud of that. But, like, I
was ready to quit sometimes.
It hurt a lot. It hurt. And it got to the point with certain Bengals seasons where you just were waiting for the bad thing to happen. Like, even if it seemed like it was going well, you were waiting for the
It's like being a Cowboys fan.
You were waiting for the field goal to be missed. Mm-hmm. You were waiting for the penalty to happen when the game was won. Like, you would just – but now it's – to feel like that page has turned.
Yeah, it's like we got a shot to do whatever we want.
Yeah.
The optimism of life.
It's unreal.
All right, so let's make an analogy about like our lives and our work lives.
Okay.
About how we can transfer that into the way we think, into the way we program ourselves.
Okay.
Because we're letting people, we don't make the decisions, we
No.
don't draft them, we don't do it. We're allowing them to affect
our lives.
our lives and our attitudes.
That's terrible.
No, it is terrible.
Unless it's going good, then it's great.
No, but what I know is, here's what I know, we're not always going to be on top.
No.
So those moments are going to happen again in my life, and I'm going to be sitting here talking about, 100-loss season for the Reds.
Right.
Oh, when Burrow's not our quarterback, or if he would get hurt again and they win 7 games when we miss the playoff. That's 5 months of misery.
Right. Do you try to focus on like the moments like now?
No, because they're over.
But think about how long in this town people have hung on to the big red machine. Like for some folks here, that glory still rings true.
Yeah,
and that's as old as me
that's
now.
That's our parents' generations, kind of.
Yeah.
You remember the stories. You don't remember.
I don't remember the games. Yeah, correct.
You remember the stories.
Yeah, I remember. Unfortunately, the back end of that.
Yeah.
When Pete's with the Phillies before he comes back as player manager, it's Johnny on his last couple of years playing first base because his knees are shot and he can't get behind the plate as easy anymore. It's those 83, 84 teams when I'm rooting for Wayne Kranchicki and Paul Householder and guys like Eddie Milner, Gary Reedus, you know, when they're losing a bunch of games. But you know what? I remember that because I was a kid.
But you remember 90, though.
Oh, I remember 90. Here's how I remember 90. Game 4, same night as my junior year homecoming dance.
Playing the Oakland Athletics.
The girls are all in dancing. The fellas were all out in the lobby.
There's 700.
Because there's a TV. They had a TV in the lobby.
World Series.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're watching the game. I can remember
Who caught the last out?
Todd Benzinger.
First base.
Yes, sir. I can remember going back, group of us like over to my date's house afterwards. I can remember watching like everybody going nuts down on Fountain Square. And I can remember seeing my big brother on TV with a broom in front of the fountain on Fountain Square.
That seemed surreal. So I was 11, but that seemed surreal because going into it, we were going to get crushed. I mean, Eckersley, he gets on he just looks like he's going to dominate. That's just wild. Was Ricky Henderson playing for him then? I don't know.
Would Ricky have still been on the team?
McGuire, was he playing for the A's? I don't remember. Canseco, was it those guys?
The Bash brothers were there.
Okay.
Yeah. And then Jose Rijo comes out, and he's just dealing.
Just murdering
He's
people.
just dealing.
Yeah.
So good.
See, refined dealing, and I use a bad term. Jesus Christ. That's just bad. He's like, yeah, Mark, that's not going to make the morning show. But, you know, I learned from Jack, the wonderful OU grad over here.
Yes.
So, as we're learning, one of the first reels he puts out, a guy named William Jackson was on, wrote a book, awesome guy, telling his story, and he's like, hey, man, you just got to keep shooting in life, making a basketball analogy.
Sure.
Jack puts out, was it an Instagram reel? Yeah. Down on the bottom is a little image of a gun.
Oh, yeah. Maybe don't do that. It was a squirt gun. It was a squirt gun.
But you know what? I handled it very well. It's like, hey, Jack. It was the first time I had to tell him he didn't do something well. Like, hey, guys, I walked down. I was like, hey, can you take a look at that real quick?
Yeah.
And we probably should change that. Do you see it? How'd that go?
That changed it. Yeah, I got that changed.
So what do you think's special about 2023 with what's happening in our city and our region? We have cool sports and stuff happening, but
Sure.
But what's the next evolution of our city? What do you think this is? We had the foodie scene, all that was going on, right?
And that obviously still there. Sports stuff's still there. I think the art scene, and I love all that stuff anyway. But
New Playhouse is brand new, right?
If you've not been up in Eden Park,
I haven't been there yet for the new one. I've walked up the steps when they redid that.
yeah, which is also awesome.
Yeah.
But to see how the footprint of that place, because you know what the top of that hill looks like, right? You've seen it.
Been there,
in
been
your
through
mind's
multiple.
eye.
Yeah.
When you go up there now, You can't believe it.
Yeah.
You can't believe what they did up on that.
Is it like walking on the banks for the first time as they put together the parks and all that stuff?
And you can reflect back to when it was nothing but old abandoned refrigerators and tires.
So bad,
right?
And you walk down there,
there by the old spaghetti factory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's special like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you think about the number of professional arts organizations supported in this town, it's impressive. Because you're talking about Cincinnati Playhouse in the Park. You're talking about the Ensemble Theater. You're talking about Shakespeare, right? You're talking about the Children's Theater of Cincinnati, which not only does their main stage shows at the Taft, but is making the move to buy the Emory Theater and dump about $40 million into it to put it back into the shape as the palace it was meant to be. Wow. Like, and to know that there's that much support for the art scene in this town. Again, this town, I think maybe part of the sports thing that comes along with it, we've always got a little bit of that underdog mentality. We don't have to have that. This town's pretty cool. I know for anybody who's not here, when they hear like Cincinnati's like your town's cool. Yeah, okay. It really is.
Everybody who comes here, man, there's people that are starting to come for this podcast more and more from out of town we've met. And I take them to Ruby's. Sometimes we'll drive down the Northern Kentucky side and we'll go over the bridges and we're sitting there sometimes and I'll put them at the Marriott and they're over in Northern Kentucky and they're looking downtown. They come back and say, man, this is a pretty cool city.
Yeah.
They're not saying that because they're trying to make anybody happy.
Right.
It's a pretty cool city.
Yeah. And you get them here for Blink, or you get them here for when this town comes together around something like that.
Is that going to happen again this year?
I think it's not this year, but next.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's happening again.
Yeah.
And it'll be awesome.
Yeah.
I went like 3 nights last time.
Yeah, it's
unbelievable.
Awesome. I was on the bridge,
on
the suspension bridge.
Yeah.
When we felt
got a little wavy. Yeah. Yeah.
Man, I'm serious. I'm not a guy that I'm a pretty I have a high tolerance for risk. Mm-hmm. It's not anything I'm proud of. It's just that's who I am.
Just a thing.
Yep. But I was on there that night and it got jammed up.
Yeah.
And we weren't moving.
Yeah.
You felt it.
And
I went,
that's a queasy feeling.
Something's wrong here.
Yeah.
And I wonder how close. I wonder.
Yeah. Oh.
It didn't feel right.
They're built with a little bit of give in them, though, right?
I don't know.
Those bridges,
did you cover that? Were you guys talking about that?
We didn't.
They shut it down. The next night you couldn't do it.
Yeah, I remember that. But I don't remember people talking about the. Ooh,
it didn't feel right.
Of it. No,
it was like there's something wrong.
It's like
here.
that old video from San Francisco when you can see that one bridge is going to.
Wow,
I think it was San Francisco. Yeah.
Where do you still want to go in this world? Is there a top of the list?
Ooh.
Where's the place?
Wow.
Is it like Istanbul, Turkey? Is it the islands of Greece? Maybe you've already been there.
So no, I've been to Athens. I've been to the islands, but I love to hike, and I don't mean hike and I go set up a tent and I'm out in the middle of nowhere for 3 or 4 days, but I love to get out and hike 10, 12, 14, 16 miles, whatever.
What about that trek in northern Spain?
Be pretty cool, wouldn't it?
Right?
Yeah.
For people that even come from a Catholic religious background and stuff, that's a
thing.
That's a thing for them.
Yeah. What's funny though? West Side Cincinnati guy, not Catholic.
The assumptions I made.
Right?
Yeah.
But no, everybody does.
Yeah, but you went to Oak Hills though, so that did trip me up. Like,
yeah.
Okay.
Why isn't he?
LaSalle or something?
St. X,
yeah.
LaSalle, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But no, I want to continue to travel places. My wife and I talk about now that our youngest is just 2 years away from doing whatever she's going to do next. We're like, there's probably more things we're going to go do. And that's exciting.
How do you get vacations on your job? What's that look like?
It's a little tough in that there are still certain months, there are sweeps months where you can't take time, and if you can't take time, then nobody else can take time. They try to avoid having two of the main anchors in the morning off at the same time, so that can get a little tricky. But everybody's pretty cool about sort of trying to talk things out in advance and kind of get the time when you can. But yeah, November you're not going anywhere. May you're not going anywhere. February you're not going anywhere. It used to be July. July is a weird book because it's the summer. Viewing habits are, very different than they are the rest of the year anyway. So
yeah, we don't feel the business sitting on this side of the.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's different.
Yeah,
it's business. It is a business.
Mm-hmm. Sure is.
Yeah, that's different.
Yeah.
What about this country when you went west? When I spoke to Jenna, my significant other, and we did a Moroccan, Spain, Paris thing. I don't travel much.
Okay.
But we did this business in the winter,
Mhm.
a real estate business, not much happening
Sure.
during the holidays. So we went just before Christmas and stayed beyond New Year's. And that was cool. But then we came back and I said, hey, there's a lot to explore here.
Mm-hmm.
I know there is. And I've traveled. I've been to 40-something states.
Oh, good for you.
Traveled.
Yeah.
Went from Chula Vista in Southern California and drove all the way up and flew out of Seattle.
Love it.
101, saw the highway, just all the – so – but I said there's a lot to experience here. So you talked about the falls in Idaho.
Yeah.
I didn't know the name of those falls.
Yeah.
Right? What else? You had a lot of stuff. What else is there?
When you get, for a guy who grew up here,
Yeah.
obviously, when you get west of the Mississippi, just topographically, things change so much, and I'm so fascinated by that. So I've taken 2 bigger trips out west, the trip with Sam we talked about, and then we did one other trip with the 3 youngest out that way when our oldest was at college down at Vanderbilt. And I think I drove them all crazy because we would round a bend and I'd be like, look, would you, I can't, it's so stunning to me to see those sights. And, that's the amazing thing. You're driving along the Columbia River, I guess.
In Missouri and stuff, and it winds up through.
You're just like, it's just beautiful everywhere you look.
You don't have to go to the Grand Canyon to see amazing.
No, yeah. And so just taking that time to explore that space, and there's places east of the Mississippi I would still like to see as well, but boy, getting out west just hits different. If you really want to take some time and explore.
Santa Fe, New Mexico, Arizona's. I've never done that trip.
No, I've never done much down in Texas.
I haven't been to Western Texas. I've been all through Central and
Yeah.
Eastern and all that.
But have you done Arches? Have you done Canyonlands? Have you done Zion?
No.
Oh,
No.
go right now.
Joshua Tree.
Leave here. What? Just walk out. Get on a plane. Yeah, you want to talk about different. There's just nothing. There's nothing to compare it to.
I drove to the top of Pikes Peak.
Not a bad thing to do.
Wow.
Not
How
a bad
about
thing.
How about that, guys?
Not a bad. Good job with your driving up the mountain.
When I came back, I had my windows down. It was a rental car. I drove back down. It was full of dust.
I'll believe that.
That was wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was a
believe
little bit
that.
different breathing up there.
We did. Sam and I on our trip. We put 5,000 miles on a rental car.
In 12 days?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's insanity.
Yeah. We drove a lot. It was great. It was awesome, man.
Or was the wife and the rest of the kids like, you know what? Good for you guys. We're happy we weren't there.
We're kind of hanging out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they all like to hike to varying degrees, and it's funny. My dad loved to hike, and you want to. I don't regret much. I regret every single time he wanted me to go on a hike and I didn't go. Everyone.
Isn't that how life goes, man? I think we regret the things we didn't try and do.
Yeah.
The things we didn't do. I don't think we regret the things we did when they failed.
Right.
I don't think that's what's going to happen to us. I think we're going to look back and say, damn it, why didn't I?
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, you're already talking about it now.
Yeah, and there are things about getting out in the woods that hit me different now than they did then. Like, I get it now, much more so than I did when I was saying, Dad, not today. When I didn't go to the Cincinnati Nature Center with him or whatever.
What is it that you get now?
Dad used to say, out here's where real life happens. And I feel that a little bit now. Like just life, nature.
How you're processing.
Taking some time to think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Getting out with your thoughts a little bit. I didn't always get that. I get that now.
Are you at a place where life, it seems like, so Malcolm Gladwell wrote the book 10,000 Hours,
Mm-hmm.
New York Times bestseller, and
Mm-hmm.
he speaks to this idea of all the research that he did, that once you do something for 10 hours, you become proficient, and so depending on, what's that, probably, I think that's 40 hours a week for 5 years. I think we work 40 hours a week. It's 2,080 hours a year.
Okay.
With a couple vacations, I believe. So it's 5 years. I always tell those that I'm coaching and getting into different business I have, it's like, hey, it's 3 to 5 years. You got to go all in for 3 to 5 years. And then what happens is sometime between 18 months and 3 or 4 years, this one day, randomly, it all slows down.
Mm.
And you're like, oh.
Got it.
Got it.
Yeah.
Are you there in life?
I almost hope not, because I don't want to stop. That's the key to all of it. That's the key to the game, whether it's physically or mentally or anything else. Dad all used to say, and there's an Edison quote that I'm not going to nail just right about, I might have a great idea tomorrow. There's something to that's not it. I'm terribly paraphrasing.
But it's about
it.
keeping going, right?
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah. Just that, tomorrow might be the day that I have that idea or that I do that thing. Tomorrow might be the day. I'm looking up at your light bulb brain over here. Tomorrow might be the day.
That's what it is. That's what we think. I think that thoughts turn on the light.
Mm-hmm.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
And so how do you grow and learn at this point in your life?
I think I learn a lot from my kids because they approach some things different than me. So I think I pick up a lot from them. I think by virtue of the job, I'm sort of forced to see and learn about certain things that but for the job, maybe I wouldn't, which is another, I think, one of the big traps if you're not careful about social media. If you only look at the things that you want to look at all the time, you're going to miss a lot, And so I think the job helps me in that sense. That I've got to sort of see some other things, and that kid who was really shy sometimes gets nervous about traveling, but I'm getting better about that because I like it. And I think you learn more by traveling, by getting out, seeing people in different places, and you learn a couple things. One, you learn about how they maybe do this or that different or whatever. And you also learn you're just like me. We just want our friends and our families to be happy.
I saw that in Europe over the holidays, man.
Yeah.
Jen and I came away talking about that. We don't speak Spanish, and we go to Morocco, and we're seeing all these walking the streets of Tangier, and and then we go to Paris, and I told her, I said, these places are all similar.
Mm-hmm.
I said, whether you're in a Muslim country in Morocco, whether you're in a Christian Catholic country of Spain, and you go to France and they think they're ahead of everyone, all those people, I said, I just think they're trying to live the best life they can. These people are the same.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went, that's how we are.
Right. So what are we fighting about?
I don't understand it, man. I really don't.
What are we fighting about?
I don't know. I guess we're fighting. I think we all believe, man, that the world's supposed to operate the way that we individually think it's supposed to, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess that's it. That why doesn't everyone think like me? Why don't they believe like me? I guess that's it. I guess.
I know. I think that's certainly part of it, at the very least. But what a shame that is.
Well, I think what happens, though, is because to think that someone else could approach it differently, it calls us to question our perspective.
And maybe we don't want to do that.
And maybe that's dangerous.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not safe.
Right.
But I think that's probably what's challenged me the most, to say, hey, let me just have a conversation with somebody that has a different perspective. There's a couple things that set me off. I'm trying to do a better job of not being argumentative, but it's a different world now.
Mm-hmm.
From a guy that said, hey, I've had good people around me, and I haven't done it on my own because you can't do anything great on your own. I don't think you can. But I've had to do a lot of hustle and grind, a lot of bootstrapping.
Yeah.
But there's been some special people around me, and when I hear people that they don't believe it's possible for them, when they believe that they should wait for someone else to do something for them. It's like, hey, the only thing I want is an opportunity, man.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I want. But you give me an opportunity, the rest can be on me and a few people around me. And when I hear people speaking to something different, I'm like, man, who affected them?
Mm-hmm.
Who were they around that caused them to start believing this? And that's tough. That's tough for me to be around that attitude.
And you wonder, what is the set of circumstances that caused them to not believe that they could XYZ, whatever the XYZ is.
Generational poverty is a thing, man.
Yeah.
I feel bad for those people, but then what I try to do is figure out through the problem solve. I'm like, the people who changed their outcome, what did they do? What did that look like?
Right.
Right? Who was the resource? What was the one person they met that said the one thing that believed in them?
Right.
Was it a teacher? Was it theater? What was it?
Yep.
And so maybe it's like, hey, instead of thinking, let me go out and try to be that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'm searching for those moments at times, like be aware of them, be present, let me see it. If I think there's a kid that I can identify, it's like, oh.
Maybe I could be helpful there.
Yeah. I don't know at what level, but maybe it's just shaking a 17-year-old kid's hand that doesn't look like me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, hey, man, what's your name?
Yeah.
I recently found myself doing that at the AMC Theater. Mm-hmm. And this kid's like, oh, it's Corey. And I saw him look at me like,
what's this guy's angle? Yeah.
Guys like you don't really talk to me and shake. And then later in the night, I went and bought something at the concession stand. I was like, hey, Corey, what's up, man? The next time I saw him, I was walking out of the theater, the dude flashed a smile.
Yeah.
And I went, yeah.
That was something.
Something. It does something. So maybe that's just our role. Not think about it's too big and get out here and try to make some impact. So I'm excited to see what the next iteration of Bob is. I personally am.
Well,
because if you've done this at 49, we've talked about a long journey today.
Yeah. A weird one.
Right? No, it is.
Yeah.
It's not a path that was well traveled.
Right.
And I'm like, man, and all the knowledge now, and all the intelligence, and all the understanding, and what you're touching, I'm like, man, you've still got another good decade in you.
I'm trying to figure out what that next thing is.
Because you've got it.
There's a pressure too.
Self-imposed.
Yeah. Like I got to find the next thing. What's the next thing? Got to be another thing.
Yeah, because I mean, you're at the peak of your profession.
I'm in a good spot. I'm in a good spot. There's no question. Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything else to shoot for.
Yeah.
Do better, be a better anchor, tell better stories, but it's like, what's the thing?
Right. If you're going to do what you're doing here, what else are you doing? Like, what's the next step? And I don't know.
Got to be something.
So
the pressure, is that on your mind consistently?
Yeah. And part of that, I think, is sort of self-imposed because of the insecurity of the business itself and not really knowing where it's going. There's always going to be news. There's always going to be a place for local broadcasts and everything else. It's finding the roadmap for the entirety of the business, not just for my career, but for the entirety of the business.
Are you guys playing offense or defense right now?
I think we're getting better at offense. And that's not just my company or my station. That's the business. I had a conversation with somebody the other day. You don't want to be where newspapers were in the early 90s or mid-90s. And maybe you thought the physical paper was never going away. That didn't work out.
It's all but gone.
Yeah. And now I'm not saying anybody back then did anything wrong, but you got to try. You got to look ahead. You got to be looking ahead.
So what can we learn though from there was a local publication that popped up in northern Kentucky in the past year to year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
That's gaining some traction.
Hyper local, just like we talked about, going deeper. Going deeper into more localized areas, I think.
The question is, how can you do that on a volume level, right? Because we don't have so much time. How can you monetize it?
You got to be able to make a living from it.
Yeah.
Everybody wants it.
Yeah.
But nobody wants to pay for it.
Yeah.
That's tricky.
That is tricky.
That's tricky
to make it for profit.
Yeah, to make it a business model,
an entity that somebody's going to invest in to get behind.
Yep.
All right, man. I think we can let you get
time to go and go to bed.
Yeah. Hey, so as we wrap up here, though, what was it about the Lucasfilms and Star Wars and Indiana Jones? What? Because I heard you say in some recording somewhere that you have a Disney Points credit card.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah, on my wall.
It's true. So, but that was before they acquired Lucas, though, right or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think part of it is just that enjoyment of storytelling, just in general.
Do you know the history of Roy Disney and all that stuff?
Not probably as much as I should.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of heroes. I like the idea of a person willing to sacrifice for the good thing. I dig that.
So who's your hero then?
On that level or in real life? I grew up with lots of them. I my mom's dad, lost a leg fighting overseas, right? Papa was my hero growing up. My dad was my hero when I started figuring stuff out a little better. and I understood some of the things he did and the sacrifices he made and the people whose lives he saved by putting in the time and commitment he did to being a cardiologist.
But you said you love heroes because they sacrifice it all for others?
Yeah, or it's just the idea of sort of a person who's willing to sacrifice for the good. You know, I realize that there is no all good and all bad. You know, and there's not all good and all evil. But it makes for a good story.
Yeah, the made-up ones.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite hero of heroes in storybooks?
Whew. I'm a big Luke Skywalker guy. I'm a guy of that era. I'm him walking into the throne room in Return of the Jedi. I'm him throwing that lightsaber aside. I'm not taking out my dad. Ain't gonna go down like that, old man. You know? Don't know.
Did Lucas write those?
Love that. He wrote all of, I think the first one, obviously. The second one, I think he wrote all the original
The screenplay
trilogy
for it?
Yeah, but he didn't direct. Empire Strikes Back, which is the best one.
Yes. Return of the Jedi. Do you like Return of the Jedi?
Love it. The original trilogy.
Okay, so which
wins.
one? So Empire Strikes
Empire's
Back.
one.
Love it.
Empire's one. And really, Jedi and the original are 2, 3. I don't know if I could pick between them. But I'll tell you one that has popped for me. You give me Rogue One. Have you seen Rogue One?
We saw it, yeah.
Rogue One is tremendous.
What number is that out of the 9?
It fits.
Or is it in between?
It fits. It's an in between. It fits literally right before, chronologically, before the very first one made.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, I don't
because
know
at the end they literally hand the Death Star plans to Princess Leia.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
We've seen enough. So
Yeah.
I don't know the storyline like you, but I've seen all the movies.
Yeah.
But a great movie.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's just, you know, if you go back and just to look how he charted Luke's hero story, like he plugged into some very old,
But he ran away to the island, man.
classically known ideas.
But he ran away to the island.
He ran away to the island.
Didn't he? Where she had to go find him?
Oh, you mean in the new trilogy?
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about that.
I
I don't want to talk about. I'll get mad. I'm serious. You haven't seen me mad yet. If you get me going,
I didn't like it.
I didn't like it either, and it makes me very sad that they took Luke and they sent him off into this very dark place. Now I try to tell myself that really Yoda kind of ended up similar, and that he was sort of by himself on Dagobah and all that. So I get that, but let me tell you right now, in Force Awakens, the first one of the sequel trilogy, off in the distance, at the end of the movie, when Kylo Ren is getting ready to throw down, and you see the lightsaber shake in the snow, Luke should have caught it. He should have been waiting on the other end of it. The crowd would have gone nuts. They didn't consult me. First of all, they obviously didn't cast me as Anakin, and then they didn't consult me on any of the movies either. I'd say that half jokingly. There are things about the sequel trilogy that I like very much. I wish I would have gotten more of Luke as I think of Luke.
Yeah.
The hero.
Because I was like, he's not acting like a hero.
Right. Yeah. He went to hide. Yeah, that's hard.
Was it the pain?
Yeah, a little bit, because, you know, things didn't go well with he and Kylo Ren, and he felt shame in that fact that he wasn't able to turn him from that, and had that momentary doubt that he would be able to guide him.
So what's Bob do when failure shows up? We haven't talked about that really, that idea. What do? Do you have an approach?
I don't know that I have an approach. Other than look at it. Was it worth the effort to begin with? And if it was, can I try again? You know, sometimes you try things and they don't work, and you're like, well.
Yeah. When's quitting okay? I talked to somebody on here, it's been months, but I was like, hey, I think at times, I can't believe it came out of my mouth.
Yeah.
But I was like, I think at times, it's all right to quit.
Yeah, and I don't know if in that sense, I don't know if quitting's even the right word.
It just came out and like, what is this? Like, what am I even talking about?
Yeah, I think it's more you just, okay, that's, I've examined what this thing is, and this goal that I'm trying,
I just didn't see it through, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll tell you a story for me, and so I sang in the chamber choir in high school.
Okay.
Didn't have any training at all. I don't even know how somebody convinced me to go. They said, hey, we're doing this thing my junior year. You should come do it. I'm like, okay. Sure. I just did things. Let's go. Right? Oh, you're playing on the football team, too. Like, why not sing in the choir?
Sing a little bit, sure.
So I show up, and Mrs. Lyle. She was awesome. And so I show up, and she said, okay, sing the national anthem.
Ooh, that's a rough one.
So I walk in her office, and she said, sing the national anthem. I said, what do you mean? She said, sing the national anthem. Huh? I'm thinking, is there music? Sing the national anthem.
Right.
So afterwards, she said, okay, you can be with us.
Yeah.
Whatever she heard, she must have heard something. It
Right.
wasn't refined.
Sure.
She heard something. But then, so she said, hey, I think maybe you should go and try out for, there's a Curse of the Werewolf is a play that we're getting to launch with. So I think you should go out for something. So I go out for that, and I get this lead part, and I start, but the first night, so terrifying, so bad. Because I ran pep rallies too.
Okay. All right.
That's how I knew
I'm with you.
When
I'm
I
with
yelled
you.
pep rallies earlier, I said,
Yep, you knew.
He's that dude.
Yep.
Because I was the
Dude.
same guy at 13 and 14, man. I couldn't talk to girls at a dance.
Yep.
So, but that first night, I have, I think 1,000 lines in this. It wasn't just the lead part. It was dominant.
You were always on stage.
Yep, always.
Yeah.
And so I'm walking around in my purple suit, carrying around my fake penguin in a dog carrier, and I'm talking to the penguin. My name is Buzz Halliburton, but we're in the gym, and it was sold out. Whatever sold out was, I don't know, it was 300 people or something, but that was a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And the light's shining on me on stage, and it's like, wow, this doesn't feel like rehearsal.
Did you go up?
I forgot my first line.
Yeah.
Blank.
Yeah.
And they didn't save me.
Oh.
I don't think they knew, even though they didn't know.
Oh.
It felt like
It's not a good feeling.
an eternity.
Yeah. It's not a good feeling.
Nope. And I don't know how I recovered, but you kept going. You
just
figured out a
kept
way.
going.
You kept going. But here's what I'm talking about: failure. So then they cast me in Schoolhouse Rocks.
Yeah. I'm just a bill.
That's it.
Yeah.
This is something in my life. Like, we have these moments. I'll talk about the failures and stuff. 2 weeks before it was supposed to, we were going to have our opening night.
Yeah.
A lot of rehearsal for that.
Mm.
I quit.
Why?
Lost all confidence.
Really?
Lost all self-esteem, lost all confidence. And I was the guy in that school.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't a part of any clique, but I was the dude.
What happened? Was there a moment?
Started doubting my voice.
Mm.
Started doubting and having a lack of confidence that it was going to sound good, that I was going to remember everything. And it was really dominant in a lot of songs.
Mm-hmm.
And I quit, and I made up a reason to quit.
Wow. That's tough.
Yeah. You let some people down.
How do you come out on the other side of that?
I just owned it, I think, pretty quick.
Yeah.
Sat down with the teacher.
That's all you can do.
Yeah, she's still the one that got me in community theater, and she saw some special things and all that. But I was pretty resilient. I came back quick from it.
Mm-hmm.
But see, that was actually good that happened then,
Sure.
because life wasn't serious.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I've been running away from that feeling of quitting and letting people down ever since.
But don't you think there are some things where if you decide not to do it again, you're not really letting anybody down. You just decide not to do something again. But have you taken that feeling and attributed it to things that even don't necessarily involve anybody else? I didn't solve the Rubik's Cube. Why have I not solved this Rubik's Cube? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Are you that guy a little bit?
I'm a guy that has high expectations of myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, that says, hey, if I set out to do something, I got to see this through.
All right.
And figure it out. And that's what I know about life is it's not always going to work out.
Right.
Right. And so when do you let yourself off the hook? I don't know. I don't know if it's good to have that mindset. And so I'm trying to help people through. I'm like, I don't know if it's a skill set. Don't know if you just haven't put enough time in. Maybe the timing of life doesn't work out. But it's like, when's it okay?
Right.
I don't have the answer.
No. Because you can't stop too early.
See that?
You got to grind a little bit.
And when do you know?
I don't know.
But I know that was wrong.
Yeah.
I know that in that moment.
That's a tough one.
That's wrong.
That's a tough one. Yeah.
You don't do that.
Yeah.
Right? And so but I learned, and I went, and I hadn't ever quit on anything.
And you're like, I'm never going to do that again?
Yep. Yeah. And so I think there's something inside of me like, hey, man, you got the part. get up there and sing the damn song.
Mm-hmm.
Sing it.
Yep.
They gave it to you. Sing the song.
Yep.
Whatever comes out, if you massively fail. But I think that's what it was. It was the fear of failure.
Mm-hmm.
And I had never backed down. And so what's going to keep you going through those moments in life? Special people around you, I guess.
Yep. That's part, and a willingness to grind.
Yeah, that's it. So when's it okay to quit, to move on, to do something different? I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe you just know. As long as you put in the time, you put in the effort. Sometimes you get to the end of the road, and sometimes it's not where you were trying to get to, but it's still the end of the road.
It's that call in London.
Yeah.
And if you wouldn't have gotten the call 10 minutes later, if you wouldn't have gotten the call that weekend,
That was it.
it's over.
Yeah. I was done. I was absolutely done.
It's fascinating.
Heck of a thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Thanks for coming in, man.
Appreciate you having me. This was fun.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's really good.
I am excited about the next decade. So I think when I see people as talented as you are, sincerely, you just are, and the impacts you've made, it's like this guy doesn't have any limits, doesn't affecting people in these roles where you go out and entertain. You don't have any limits. So it's like, what's the next thing? Could be this, could be an iteration of it, but your media world is going to change.
Yep.
And it's going to change before it's time to retire.
Yep. It's not, if I need to do this 15 more years, I need to do something 15 more years at least. Ain't gonna look like it looks now in 10, maybe not 5.
And I hope that you guys can process through that and do it in a productive, offensive way.
Me too.
And figure it out so it's not just like a hope and a prayer.
Right. You don't want to be rearranging the deck chairs when you've already hit the iceberg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're in a good spot. I can't even believe the decision makers above you on the money factor and that piece.
Yeah. It's a lot to figure out.
That's a lot to figure out. Go Reds.
Go Reds.
Come on, Burrow.
Get that. You don't want a calf like mine. You don't want it like that.
And when Messi comes to town,
that could be a heck of a thing. Be a lot of people down at that.
Be a lot of people there.
Yeah.
Tickets are already $250, $300. But yeah, you gonna go watch it?
If I can talk my son, let me have his other ticket to the Bailey. He's got 2 in the Bailey. So we'll see. We'll see if his best friend or his girlfriend has spoken for that already. If not, maybe old man gets to go.
Because I think it's like the next to last game of the year. It's in October.
Yeah, because it's part of the Lamar Hunt Cup or whatever it is. Yeah.
So October 10th or something, they're coming to town.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Anytime you can see the best in the world.
Got to go.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's why we tune into Good Morning Cincinnati.
There you go. Boom. See, I don't know if he had that tag ready or not, but that was pretty good.
No.
That was pretty good.
Appreciate you,
Come
man.
on.
Thanks for coming in.
Buddy.
Okay.